Greetings, lovers of lore and legend, whether student, teacher, parent, storyteller, or sleigh-riding singer of sleighing songs.
The Great Tales is a podcast about myths and legends from both inside and outside the Christian tradition. And twice a month, we bring you the stories that Christians have read, retold, and wrestled with for centuries.
Today, we're going to discuss a hero that you might not have heard of before, Kullervo, one of the most striking and family-friendly figures of the Kalevala, the not-quite epic of the Finns. This story includes a lot of violence and other adult themes, such as suicide and incest, which just makes it a normal fairy tale. But this is a heads up for parents who might be watching or listening with young listeners. Whatever the case, you'll never hear jingle bells the same way again.
So if you listened to episode 33 of this podcast, which was titled 3 Bardic Beatdowns, you heard a bit of the Kalevala, in which we discussed the bard battle of Väinämöinen and Youkahainen, which, don't name your kids that, although maybe do, I don't know, which forms some of the beginning material of the book.
Name your kids after saints, you guys.
That's right.
Every child, by default, is named John or Mary, and you have to get permission to do anything else.
Or if you're, Carpatho Russian, you always have an Aunt Helen. Yeah. So the story
is kind of Mary, though.
Yeah, that's true. So the Väinämöinen and Youkahainen story is from Runos 3 and 4 of the Kalevala, and the Kullervo story, which you'll hear us pronounce it both Kullervo and Kullervo, basically depending on the meter of the line. The Kullervo story is found in, but I've read that apparently in Finnish it is Kullervo. With the stress on the first syllable. But anyway, it's found in Runos 31 through 36. So this is a ways into the Kalevala. But before we reacquaint you with the Kalevala, a little advertisement of sorts.
A word from our handsome, charismatic, generous, and kind-hearted sponsors who are, hold on, let me check my notes. Oh, it's us! Don't know why you put all that stuff in the script about us being handsome, Father. But anyway, all right. So what's going on with all the legendary mythic stories of the Orthodox Christian tradition?
Yeah, if you ask yourself that, you should join us at St. Ignatius Antiochian Orthodox Church in Franklin, Tennessee. That is on the south side of Nashville for sessions with the two of us, spanning the saint's defeat of dragons to an unlikely saint called the Fox.
We are doing an event called the Orthodox Legendarium on July 31st to August the 2nd. And if you ever wanted this podcast to be a conference where you could hang out with cool people and discuss these things with other fellow Orthodox Christians who care about them, this is that event. So come so that we'll do it again. You can find more info at ancientfaith.com/events.
Man, you basically stole my last line.
Oh, I did.
Good job with that.
Sorry about that.
Ad-lib there, Deacon Seraphim. Jeez. Yep. But anyway, yes, we'll see you there. ancientfaith.com/events. Tickets are going. Tickets are limited, by the way, so get yours. It's going to be big fun. But before we dive into the tale of the unhappy Kullervo, Deacon Seraphim, why don't you give us a little, and I mean little, and brief, and I mean brief, introduction to the Kalevala. People might remember this from episode 33, which I mentioned earlier, but let's kind of, bring people back up to speed. So I mentioned runos earlier. So tell all the kids at home what a runo is. Or sometimes it says just rune, like the letter rune.
Yep. All right. So you all heard Father Andrew say that I had as much time as I wanted to, that I could talk forever, that we could get deep into the details of 19th century mythography and epic poetry. So,
yes.
No. All right. So the back
folklore movement.
Yeah, the folklore movement.
Mention that. Well, actually, we should mention the folklore movement.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the back of the book. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Father.
I was going to say. Okay. Yeah. So the folklore movement is a 19th century movement in Europe, where you get a lot of people, especially academics and other kinds of elites, cultural elites, who have this idea, and it's a good idea, that you should not read only kind of the great classical epics, Greek and Latin texts, and that it's actually worth reading, listening to, collecting, writing down, recording the kinds of stories that are told by as they would call it, folklore, the folk stories, fairy tales, this kind of
to
stuff.
break down those two words, folk or Volk, as in Volkswagen or some other words in German, means the people, right?
Yeah.
We still have that word in English, same word etymologically, folk. Although usually when we use folk, we mean something that's folksy. You know, we don't, but where it's associated with being sort of like rustic or like countryside. But here in this context, it really just means the people.
Yeah. Yeah. So the idea here is,
and then lore. And then lore is learning. So
indeed.
Like you could say folklore is the collected knowledge base, the collected stories of a people.
Right. And the reason why this becomes a thing is because up until this point in most of European education, there's such a huge emphasis on classical texts. And that's regarded as the highest, the best, the elite, the thing that you use for education. And there was very little attention being paid in official education to other kinds of stories. And indeed, in many cases, to the kinds of stories that were local to the people who were doing this education. Right? You grew up hearing certain kinds of stories. That's very nice. Now we're here to read Homer and get serious about our education. It's sort of a stereotype of what was going on. And so with the folklore movement, then you start to get all kinds of attention paid to more local European traditions. So this is where you get, like, the Grimm's brothers collecting their stuff. Of course, they have philological interests. They're doing language studies.
Who was very much a perennialist.
Yeah. But one of the people who gets, caught up in the folklore movement is a guy named Elias Lönnrot, or Ilya. I'm not sure how to pronounce it in Finnish. I'm not going to.
Lönnrot, yeah.
And he's Finnish. He wants to figure out, like, okay, the tales of my people, are they worth checking out? And yes, he believed that they were. And so he traveled around, although particularly he traveled in Karelia, which is the region in Finland where actually there's lots and lots of Orthodox people. So this set of stories actually has an Orthodox tie-in. This is the kind of stuff that was being passed around by Orthodox Finns.
Right. Yeah. So what happens is that so runic song, this idea of runic song has been around so this will also explain what the runos are, right? So runic song, also it's sometimes called rune song or runo song or Kalevala song, is a form of oral poetry. It's got nothing to do with like Old Norse runes as a writing system. In fact, this is what you do when you don't have a writing system. It's a form of monophonic. That is single voice singing among the Baltic Finnic peoples, although there is one group, I think, in the region that does a polyphonic version of it, which would be interesting to hear. But it's done in usually alliterative trochaic tetrameter, or the Kalevala meter, which is actually also quite easy to do in English. So it's one of the things that's easier to translate into a natural English meter. And basically, this is a form of song, a form of storytelling, because these are all narrative songs, which has been around for over 1,000 years. Some people think that the songs in the Kalevala that have to do with things like the origin of the world have been around for not in this exact form. I'll explain why in a moment, but have been around for as long as 3,000 years. And then the more recent events, like the arrival of Christianity, are probably from the Iron Age, which in Finland lasts until around the year 1300. There are some of these songs which are actually believed to be of ancient Estonian origin, or at least have ancient Estonian motifs in them. So this is a part of the world people are moving around, they're migrating, and as Father mentioned, a lot of these are in the Karelian, what used to be, or I think what is now the Russian Republic of Karelia, but is actually historically part of the Finnish people. And there was in this area in the 19th century there was a movement called Karelianism, which is kind of a form of national romanticism, and that's the context in which the Kalevala comes about. So, runic song is basically it is a largely improvised song on a particular theme. So you could say the story of Wainamoinen and the creation of the world is there's a way to sing about that is a little different depending on who is doing it and what time of day it is and how much they've had to drink and so on and so forth. But there are themes in the stories that are always going to be the same. There would be themes in the story that are always going to be the same, and there are stock phrases, stock characters, and stock epithets for those characters that you can use to kind of pad the meter out if you find yourself kind of running into I need an extra line right here, and then you can be like, yes, wide fame Wainamoinen, and then you can kind of continue on. It's not totally dissimilar. I'm really sorry about this. It's not totally dissimilar to something like freestyle rap, in the sense that you would have these people in the community who are really good at doing it, and just like hearing them do the same song that you've heard them do 100 times before is amazing, because they're not doing it. This is not recitation. They're not just memorizing a poem and then reciting it. There is an improvisational, almost like jazz aspect to what they're doing. Now, in the 18th century, this runic song is common throughout Finland and Karelia, but by the late 18th century, it starts to disappear, first in Western Finland, because European rhymed poetry is becoming more and more common in Finland. There are basically just a bunch of hobbyists at this point who are writing down Finnish folk poetry, but mostly it just remains in the oral tradition, and that's being lost. And then, because one of the things that's going on, as Father was explaining, is there was this big push for every people to find their national epic. Yeah. So, in the same way that you have the Greek and the Roman epics, which are kind of the foundation epics of Europe, there was also this idea that, well, we could make ourselves a nation. And this is as the idea of the empire, which had been carried on in some form, both in the East, but also in the West with the Holy Roman Empire. That's basically what holds Europe together through the Middle Ages. And as that is breaking down, people are inventing this new idea of the nation state. Well, to have that, you need a founding epic. And to get a founding epic, people start going and looking. So the Germans have the Nibelungenlied. The Greeks have the Iliad. And of course, the Iliad kind of belongs to everybody. There's also, Ossian, the narrator of the Scottish epic cycle. And some of that is maybe forged, but in any case, you have all these examples. And so there's a Finnish-born nationalist linguist named Carl Axel Gotland who comes along and starts trying to get people interested in Finnish poetry again. And he publishes 3 articles called Concerning Wainamoinen. And some guy who was at Turku University, a young student named Elias Lonrat, reads these articles and becomes super, super, super interested in this.
And he's a doctor, isn't he?
Yeah. So he was. Well, I mean, he did his master's thesis on this at the university. Yeah, but yeah, I think he was a physician. So because basically what happened was he would go out on these field trips, and this is the early 1800s. He would go out on these field trips, and he would just basically listen to people tell the stories, and then he would kind of write them down. And in the middle, there's like a bunch of cholera pandemics, so he has to kind of go back and forth between Helsinki and like the rest of the countryside. But he's collecting all of this verse, and then eventually he starts compiling all of it together.
Yeah, and now I was going to say one thing that I think is worth noting is, as you're imagining him going throughout the countryside, one of the things that he's going to be seeing, and you can actually go on YouTube and find people doing this, is that there is a traditional way of reciting, well, not reciting, but, performing this verse where you have 2 people sitting opposite each other, right next to each other, but opposite. And they might be like holding hands or something like this.
Yeah, using hands, and they're kind of pushing.
And and it's almost like, and they rock back and forth, almost like the motion of each is like they're rowing a boat on some level, but they're facing each other. And what they do is, as one person rocks, as they rock in one direction, someone will recite one line, and then they rock in the other direction, the other person recites a line, and so it's collaborative. Yeah. Right. And so it's and there's traditionally a zither instrument, a piece of wood with a hole in it with strings across it that's played to accompany this.
But using that's just giving rhythm. It's not giving like a melody or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, you can, like I said, if you look up rune singing or something like this on YouTube, you can actually see people performing this. So it's really cool, really wild.
So there's a lot of debate about to what extent Elias Lönnrot just collected tellings. But obviously, again, you should not, when you read the Kalevala, imagine every telling was exactly like this word for word. It's not a text to be studied in that way. But there's some debate about how much of it was just collected tellings, and then to what degree he might have tried to make things a little more epic. Because the thing is, like, what he was looking for was the Finnish Iliad, and this is not that. And so if you're looking for that, you're going to be like a little disappointed. I think it's better than that. I'm not saying it's better than the Iliad. I'm just saying it's better than a Finnish Iliad. Like, this is something that's really specific to the Finnish people, right? And so it's really, I mean, I think it's marvelous. I think it's wonderful.
I love it actually
so much.
Yep.
I love it so much. Some of you know I have a bunch of fantasy literature and books coming out later this year and so on. But it is this meter, the Kalevala meter, is the meter that I use for any ancient poetry in my fantasy set, because when I read this as a young man, I was just so captivated by it, as was Tolkien. So anyway, that's all to say, while we don't know, I think that probably a very small percentage, like less than 5%, is actually from Lönnrot. I think he left things mostly alone as much as he could. That's my
there's
personal
indications
sense.
there's indications of that, because it's not always consistent. Like, in fact, we're going to see in this particular story that there's a what looks very much like him combining two different traditions about Kullervo and not really reconciling them, which so I think it's important to make an honorable mention here of J.R.R. Tolkien. So Tolkien read this. In fact, he did badly on tests in school because he was trying to teach himself Finnish so that he could read the Kalevala in its original language. But he was so interested in the story of Kullervo that he tried to come up with his own prose, although with some poetry in it, his own prose version of it, in which he fixes the story, fixes the problem that exists in Lönnrot's text. And if you're interested in reading his attempt at this, now he doesn't finish it, but if you're interested in reading his attempt at this, there's a volume, which I can't hold up to the camera right now because all my Tolkien books are still in a container somewhere, in a storage facility. But it's called The Story of Kullervo, and you're checking to see if your copy is behind you somewhere.
It's over there, but it's under some other things. I'm not.
Yeah. The Story of Kullervo, and what you see is what he got completed, and then there's some notes about what he was going to do. He wrote some notes saying he was planning on doing X, Y, and Z. But there's also, and this is my favorite part, there's also some commentary on it, and there's commentary by Verlin Flieger. But my favorite part of the book, actually, is not even where he's trying to write his own Kullervo story or fix the story. It's two different essays or lectures that he gave before and after World War I, when he's actually still quite a young man, talking about this, the Kalevala, and about how he felt about it. And he said, actually, that reading this was like a rocket going off in his mind, and that this was the thing that in many ways, reading the Kalevala is why we have his Legendarium.
It's definitely one of the things. I think it's so easy as a Tolkien guy to be like, yes, it was when he first read the name Erendel in the Christ poem that the whole Legendarium sprung fully formed into his head.
No,
really,
it's several things. But this is one of the things that he points to.
Yeah, if they're all the bones in the soup, this is one of the larger bones. That's what I would say.
Yeah, and probably one of the lesser known ones. And
the Legendarium is not fat; it's just big boned.
And wow. And so especially if you've read the Silmarillion, and you're familiar with the tale of Turin Turambar, there's a whole lot of Kullervo in there. Probably
the single thing before the Thebad, the single thing that you and I have podcasted together about the most, like one story.
Probably.
And then we blew that out of the water with Hot Theban Summer, which just like goes to show that there's a thing the kids want, and it's
It's so weird. It's so weird.
so weird.
Another parental advisory. Just
Why does this keep happening?
Everybody, I don't know.
Stories? Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, this is a dark. It's a dark story, but there's something very compelling about it. And if you're not familiar with it, I hope you're gonna get the story just by listening to this. But you should go look this up. You should read it for yourself, of course. It doesn't take that long. Yeah. So this is kind of feeds in if you're a Tolkien lover, Tolkien scholar. This feeds into all of that. So welcome to a corner of our weird little tale-telling world.
Yep.
Any other notes on the background of the Kalevala? I thought you kept it pretty brief, actually.
I feel like that was pretty restrained for us. Like we're only 21 minutes into the podcast. Yeah, for us.
Okay, so
listen, you had those years of being formed by trying to give Sunday homilies where you have to be brief. I had years of being formed of preaching in a Baptist church where if you go under 45 minutes, people will riot. Like you're expecting a long sermon. So
expect their money back.
Yeah, that's right.
You'll have to retithe that tithe. Okay, right. So we're going to get moving. We're going to take this one runo at a time. So we're going to start with runo number 31. Again, this is 31 through 36.
And we're not going to read the whole runo.
No. It will be a little long to do that. But we're going to give you excerpts. And where we skip over narrative details, we're going to just tell you briefly what happened in the portion that we skipped. But I tried to pick selections that I think would be especially notable. But yeah, read this for yourself. The version that we're going to be reading from is the 1888 John Martin Crawford translation, which is all on the interwebs. You can find it. I think Project Gutenberg has it. So you can actually look at the version that we're looking at. So, All right. So runo number 31, I'm going to just tell you what's at the beginning of it. This forms sort of the background of this. So you've got two brothers, Untamo and Kullervo, okay? And Untama is jealous of Kullervo, his brother. So this leads to tension, kind of petty spats. There's one point where Untama drops his fishing nets in Kullervo's stream, catching his fish, right? Eventually you get open warfare. So Untamo slaughters all of Kullervo's family. Just put an asterisk next to that. As we will see, he slaughters all of his family except for there's one young woman left, and she's pregnant. And her name is Untamala, and she is the wife of the now dead Kullervo. Okay, so Untamo makes her his slave, and she gives birth not too long to a boy that she names Kullervo. I want to give a linguistic note here because you're going to hear names in a different form. Okay, so Kullervo, the title of this runo in the Crawford translation is Kullervoinen, son of evil. So Kullervoinen is it's actually a diminutive of Kullervo, but from what I could tell, and I'm not a Finnish linguist, but from what I could tell, diminutives in Finnish don't necessarily imply the same kinds of things that they do in Indo-European languages, because Finnish is not an Indo-European language. So often when we put like your given name, Deacon Sarah, from Richard, if someone were to call you Richie or Rich, right. That's a diminutive form, and we mean something.
Sometimes, by the way, my Russian friends might call me Fima or Serafimushka, which are both different ways of making a diminutive off of Seraphim.
Exactly. And in those cases, it indicates familiarity or intimacy, or sometimes, like when you nickname a child, it's cuteness, or it means something is a smaller version of whatever. Like for instance, you could talk about giving a sermon or a sermonette, right? So a sermonette suggests that it's short.
Is when like a lady pastor does it.
Is that what it is? Kind of sermonesque. But at least within the Kalevala, it seems that most of these diminutives, basically their function here is to serve the meter.
Right.
That's basically how it functions here. So when you hear that oinen ending, just think about the beginning of it, and it's talking about that same person. So Kullervoinen is Kullervo. Okay.
And I would just say, I think that's all right. I'm going to take your word for it. I don't know anything about Finnish. The only thing I know about Finnish is that all Finns are witches. And that they have.
We're going to get
Finn's
going to get our friend Father Raphael Barberg, who is Finnish.
Yeah,
he's going to.
I mean, it's not like, it just is what it is. Like, I don't make the rules, but they do have the nicest airports. So
I have been to hell. Yeah. HEL airport.
I've been to hell with you.
Yes, that's right. We were in hell together.
It was not harrowing. It was a super nice airport.
No, it was super nice. It was like IKEA. If IKEA had built an airport and it became nicer.
But also like if IKEA was nice, like that's the thing. It's like that,
right?
But done
without
well.
those. Yeah. Supposedly the meatballs are good. I do not agree with that. I do not agree with the IKEA meatballs being very good. I had them the one time, and it was anyway. It was hell.
It's like I really, there's fewer things I hate more than IKEA, by the way. But anyway, all right, let's not get sidetracked.
Okay, all right. So with that background about these two brothers, Untamo Kullervo, and then Untamala, the widow now of Kullervo, she's enslaved. She gives birth to Kullervo, and so we pick up from here. So why don't you begin reading from here?
Kullervoinen's wife in beauty sat beside her chamber window, looking out along the highway, spake these words in wonder, guessing, do I see some smoke arising, or perchance a heavy storm cloud near the border of the forest, near the ending of the prairie? It was not some smoke arising, nor indeed a heavy storm cloud. It was Untamoinen's soldiers marching to the place of battle. Warriors of Untamoinen came equipped with spears and arrows, killed the people of Kullervo, slew his tribe and his kindred, burned to ashes many dwellings, leveled many courts and cabins, only left Kullervo's daughter with her unborn child, survivors of the slaughter of Untamo, and she led the hostile army to her father's halls and mansions, swept the rooms and made them cheery, gave the heroes home attentions. Time had gone but little distance ere a boy was born in magic. Of the virgin Untamala, of a mother trouble-laden, him the mother named Kullervo. Pearl of combat, said Untamo. Then they laid the child of wonder, fatherless, the magic infant, in the cradle of attention, to be rocked and fed and guarded. But he rocked himself at pleasure, rocked until his locks stood endwise, rocked one day, and then the second, rocked the third from morn till noontide, but rocked all away around the Christmas tree. Oh, wait, sorry, that's not in here. But before the third day ended, kicks the boy with might of magic, forwards, backwards, upwards, downwards, kicks in miracles of power, bursts with might his swaddling garments, creeping from beneath his blankets, knocks his cradle into fragments, tears to tatters all his raiment, seemed that he would grow a hero. And his mother, Untamala, thought that he, when full of stature, when he found his strength and reason, would become a great magician, first among 1,000 heroes. When 3 months the boy had thriven, he began to speak as follows. When my form is full of stature, when these arms grow strong and hardy, then will I avenge the murder of Kullervo and his people. Untamoinen hears the saying, speaks these words to those about him. To my tribe he brings destruction. In him grows a new Kullervo.
All right, so this is our introduction to Kullervo. Now, Kullervo's father is Kullervo or Kullervo. So yeah, the names are very similar. And it's worth noting here that some scholars actually say that Kullervo or Kullervo is a corruption.
Kalevala, by the way. It's just, yeah.
Is a corruption of Kalevala.
Oh, you were about to say that. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So Kalevala, the name of this book, means the land of heroes.
Yeah.
So his dad's name is Hero, basically, is kind of what we're saying. But it's interesting.
For a Shakespeare character.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, from one of my favorite plays. And now I wish we had a Finnish linguist here to say this to us, but I'm just going to make a guess here about this. So it's notable that his mother's name, Untamala, it has, this is my speculation based on my little bit of study of Finnish that I've done basically to try to understand the Kalevala better. That la ending means place of. So like Kalevala, the land of the place of heroes. So Untamala seems like her name means the place of Untamo, like that she's now, her name that's given in the poem is the fact that she's his slave, that she's been taken by him. That's, I don't know, that's what it just looks like to me based on the little knowledge of Finnish that I have. I don't know if that's true or not. But yeah, I mean, so the whole thing starts with what in Tolkienian terms and, you know, in other terms, we will call a kinslaying. You know, because Untama and Kullervo are brothers. So he's going and killing, these are his relatives. Right? And that's the context in which Kullervo is born. And what a baby he is, right? He rocks his own cradle, but he basically
Breaks
kicks
out
it to
of his-
pieces.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Just hit the microphone.
It's okay. Getting
Everybody
a little
knows.
Kullervoinen there over there in
Yeah,
Texas.
yeah. I mean, he breaks out of his swaddling clothes. He rocks his cradle to bits. Something I'll just mention, by the way, is that the opening lines here, she's looking out the window and she says, "Do I see some smoke arising or perchance a heavy storm cloud?" There's a name for this kind of, wait, is there a storm, or sometimes it'll be something on fire? There's a name for this trope in epic poetry. I cannot remember it right now, but you see it, for instance, in the Finnsburg fragment, which is the one separate retelling of the fight at Finnsburg that survives outside of the Beowulf poem. And it begins with this sort of statement, "Gables are burning." And basically the trope is, you know, somebody's looking out from the hall and first they think there's a roof on fire, and then they realize, no, it's just a bunch of guys with torches marching toward us because they're going to kill us. But this shows up in all kinds of epic poetry across the ancient world, so much so that it seems like it's like one of the tropes that has kind of survived, like a storytelling trope. You know, you can see how in an oral storytelling culture it'd be really powerful, because you're like, oh, she's looking out and she's like, I see some smoke arising, or a heavy storm cloud near the border of the forest, near the end of the prairie. And so people are imagining, oh, there's a storm cloud, or oh, there's something on fire, or whatever. And then you say, but it was not some smoke arising.
Yeah.
Nor indeed a heavy storm cloud. It was Untamoinen soldiers. And then everybody's like, oh no. You know, so anyway, this is just a really common storytelling device in the ancient world, in places as, you know, broad and, you know, different from each other in many ways culturally as
indeed.
You know, ancient Frisia and Finland. So
when I look in the chat here, actually, so this is a timely comment. So Savannah mentions, she says, "I wish my babies would," well, she writes Rick, but I'm sure she means rock. Does she mean Rickroll? Their own cradles.
That's what she means.
Yeah, she definitely means Rickroll. I wish your babies would Rickroll their own cradles as well. But I mean, if the trade-off is that you get a kid like Kullervo, you don't want, I mean, a baby.
I have a one and some change-year-old, and she's in a very sort of clingy stage right now, and she is never going to give my wife up. It's never going to happen. So.
Yeah. Okay. So we see here that when Kullervo is 3 months old, he has a big manly baritone voice that sounds just like Deacon Seraphim. Very special child. When he's 3 months old,
my voice has always been like this, by the way.
Yeah. When he's 3 months old, he vows vengeance on Untamo. And so the next thing that happens, and I'm sorry to kind of skip over this part. Again, you know, parental advisor here. So the next thing that happens is that Untamo tries to kill him by drowning, by fire, by hanging. I mean, this 3-month-old, okay, by hanging. But in every case, Kullervo has magical powers, basically, that save him. So finally, since he realizes he's not going to be able to kill him, Untamo decides to try to put him to work. He lets him grow up, decides to put him to work, but he's like a tank. He's just so massively strong, and his strength is unwieldy, and he's so wild that he breaks everything. He just breaks everything that he touches. He's just so huge and so.
There's a little bit of this trope. I mean, this is actually a common trope among various historical heroes, but also like it's there in the Turin story. Like everything Turin does, we're told like as a child, like goes wrong. Anything he works on, he breaks. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. By the way, Savannah confirms definitely Rickroll. Thank you very much.
There you go. See?
She's clearly no stranger to love. All right, I'm going to read this next section here. When the boy had grown a little, had increased in strength and stature, he was given occupation. He was made to tend an infant, made to rock the infant's cradle. These, the words of Untamoinen, often look upon the young child, feed him well and guard from danger, wash his linen in the river, give the infant good attention. This is not going to go well. Young Kullervo, wicked wizard, nurses one day, then a second. On the morning of the third day, gives the infant cruel treatment, blinds its eyes and breaks its fingers, and when evening shadows gather, kills the young child while it slumbers, throws its body to the waters, breaks and burns the infant's cradle. Untamoinen thus reflected, never will this fell Kullervo be a worthy nurse for children. You don't think?
Yeah, good.
Cannot rock. How did he get this as a good idea to begin with? Anyway.
So he's tried everything. No, listen, I can tell you exactly how this goes. Okay. Just like put yourself in the mindset of, let's say like you're a pastor at a large evangelical church and you have this one young guy who can't stay out of trouble. He's going out with the wrong girls. He's leading the right girls astray. Like he's getting into all this trouble. Obviously, what do you do with this guy? Well, you make him youth pastor. And exactly. That's exactly what
Kullervo, the mega church youth pastor.
That's what he is. He's a youth
That's going to be a new t-shirt. Someone designed that t-shirt for us. Okay. Never will.
Just imagine
Kullervo.
Him like a flannel and like there you go. Horn-rimmed glasses.
Be a worthy nurse for children. Cannot rock a babe in safety. Do not know how I can use him. What employment I can give him. Thus, so now we're going to see some of the stuff he tries to give him to do. Then he told the young magician he must fell the standing forest. And Kullervo gave this answer, only will I be a hero when I wield the magic hatchet. I am young and fair and mighty, far more beautiful than others, have the skill of 6 magicians. Thereupon he sought the blacksmith, this the order of Kullervo. Listen, O thou metal artist, which is a great line. Listen, O thou metal artist, forge for me an axe of copper, forge the mighty axe of heroes, wherewith I may fell the forest, fell the birch and oak and aspen. It's great. This behest the blacksmith honors, forges him an axe of copper. Wonderful the blade he forges. Kullervoinen grinds his hatchet, grinds his blade from morn till evening, and the next day makes the handle. Then he hastens to the forest, to the upward sloping mountain, to the tallest of the birches, to the mightiest of oak trees. There he swings his axe of copper, swings his blade with might of magic, cuts with sharpened edge the aspen. With one blow he fells the oak tree, with a second blow the linden. Many trees have quickly fallen by the hatchet of Kullervo. Then the wizard spake as follows, this the proper work of Lempo, let dire Hisi fell the forest. Just put a star next to that, we're going to discuss that. In the birch he sank his hatchet, make an uproar in the woodlands, called aloud in tones of thunder, whistled to the distant mountains, till they echoed to his calling. When Kullervo spake as follows, may the forest in the circle where my voice rings fall and perish, in the earth be lost forever. May no tree remain unleveled, may no saplings grow in springtime, never while the moonlight glimmers where Kullervo's voice is echoed. Where the forest hears my calling, where the ground with seed is planted, and the grain shall sprout and flourish, may it never come to ripeness. May the ears of corn be blasted. Which is a great line. Yeah. Okay, so a lot of this is to show what a trope that you've mentioned before, and maybe you can comment on, is this idea of what's called the bear son. Bear as in like a bear, the big, like a grizzly bear or a black bear, the bear son. So what is that? You see this a lot in various tales.
Yeah, this is a common folklore a tradition, and during the folklore movement, one of the fun things, I mentioned this in our last episode with Father Quinteros, but one of the things that they would go and do was to kind of categorize and give sort of classification numbers to different tropes. So this is one of those tropes. It's usually called the bear son tale, and the basic idea of the bear son tale is that he's of some kind of mixed parentage, traditionally the son of a bear and a human woman, usually, or like a werebear and a human woman, something like that. And so he grows up and he looks like a human from the outside, but he has all these bear qualities. So he's much larger than the other kids his size. He's kind of clumsy. He like eats a lot. His hands are always sticky for some reason. And he spends most of his time sort of sleeping by the fire. One of the derogatory names for a person like this in Icelandic is a coal biter. That is, they're laying so close to the coals that they could bite them. That's the idea. In other words, it's just like a guy who's like sucking up all the warmth in the room by laying too close to the fire and just like constantly sleeping, lazy, oafish.
A massive lad.
By the way, the Coal Biters was the name of the original name of the Inklings, or the group that went on to form the Inklings. They were originally a group that got together to read Icelandic sagas, and they were called the Coal Biters. But
that's right.
Anyway, massive lad. But then typically what typically happens in a bear's sun tale is that the character, everybody's like, man, this guy's useless. He's good for nothing. And then one day a monster shows up. And then he goes out and he handles the monster. And then everybody's like, you know what? I don't mind so much, him laying around and breaking things occasionally, because he's the one that keeps the monsters away. And there's good indication, for instance, that Beowulf, before he makes it into the poem of the same name, Beowulf kind of starts out his career as one of these bears' sons. There's indications of that in the poem.
Yeah, cool.
So anyway, it's a common trope. For various reasons, Kullervo doesn't quite fit that. For one reason, one reason is that he we don't have the turn. Like, part of the bear son story is a monster shows up and then suddenly everybody appreciates him and they realize, hey, this is what we needed this guy for, was to fight off our enemies. Unfortunately, Untamoinen doesn't have that kind of insight. And so you've got Kullervo out. He's breaking everything. He's killing babies for no obvious reason. Except that it's probably part of his revenge. The idea is probably it's one of Ointamoinen's children, right?
Yeah.
So maybe for revenge. And then he's cutting down all the trees, and basically he's supposed to cut down the trees, but instead he just destroys the forest. And then he says, may the forest in the circle where my voice rings fall and perish, in the earth be lost forever. May no tree remain unleveled. May no saplings grow in springtime. Never while the moonlight glimmers. Where Kullervo's voice has echoed, where the forest hears my calling, where the ground with seed is planted, and the grain that sprout and flourish, may it never come to ripeness. May the ears of corn be blasted. So basically he's like laying waste to the very fertility of the land itself. Yeah. This is not a guy you want to keep around.
Right. And so, I mean, I told you, put a little star next to where you see him say, this the proper work of Lempo, let's dire Hisi fell the forest. Okay, so what are these names? These are names of demonic figures. So he is actually invoking spirits when he does this. Someone in the chat says that copper would make a terrible axe. It's a magical axe, my friend. It's a magical axe. And it's interesting that it calls him a wizard multiple times, because many times it gets called a wizard. Wizard, like, you need to get out of your head the idea of wizard like as a spellcaster standing in the back of the party while the tanks are in the front.
It's more like a shaman.
Yeah, or berserker, a magical fighter, like,
Although I just want to say, he gets his magic axe from a metal artist.
That's right. Yes, that's right. That's right, exactly. It sounds just like that when he gets that axe. So Lempo is a figure that's kind of, just for shorthand, kind of a devil, or the devil, a devil. Worth noting that a lot of these stories are being repeated by Christians, and we're actually going to much later on, we're going to see some very Christian language suddenly being used for a not Christian God. But anyway, Lempo is kind of a devil figure. So Hisi, initially this word seems to refer to like a sacred grove. And then eventually it gets to be used to refer to the spirit that lives there. Right? So if you need a shorthand version of this, Hisi is kind of it's not a proper name exactly. So it's a forest god or trickster. It's a spirit of the forest, a trickster spirit. And then, as Christianity takes over Finland, this becomes like a demon, is how it's sort of seen as a demon. So when Kullervo invokes these spirits, he's bringing to bear spiritual power as he's destroying this forest. He's not just engaging in logging, which is what he was sent to do.
Imagines, you should not imagine him just kind of out there like, I am a lumberjack and I'm
right, exactly. No, it's much more Bruce Springsteen, Baby, We Were Born to Ruin.
Nice.
Thank you.
Nice.
So this is a dark figure. I mean, we've already seen him kill a baby. This is a dark figure that we're looking at here. So, all right. So since Untama can't figure out what to do with him and he kind of doesn't want him around anymore, he decides to sell him off as a slave. He's already a slave, but he's going to sell him to someone else. And he sells him to Ilmarinen. Ilmarinen is the smith god of Finnish mythology, basically. So you shouldn't exactly imagine Hephaestus or Vulcan, maybe a little bit more like Wayland, kind of figure.
Who is, I don't know, Wayland and Hephaestus are definitely linked. I mean, I think it's not the wrong, it's not the wrong, just don't be thinking, I think what Father Andrew means, I could be wrong, but I think what you mean is don't be thinking God's sitting up on Olympus. This is much closer to Earth, but for sure, Wayland, it's interesting because every culture has a crippled smith. Every culture has a crippled smith. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Why don't you go ahead and finish out this Runo where he gets sold to Ilmarinen?
Yeah. All right. So, Untamoinen sells Kullervo, trades him off in Far Karjala, which is Karelia, to the blacksmith Ilmarinen, to the master of the metals. This the sum received in payment: 7 worn and worthless sickles, 3 old cauldrons worse than useless, 3 old scythes and hoes and axes, recompense indeed sufficient for a boy that will not labor for the good of his employer. So sells him cheap.
Basically. And by the way, I should say, Ilmarinen, Ilmar is still a name being used in Estonia and Finland. I mean, this is a name. It's very, very common. So, this all will kind of resonate differently if you're in those regions. Which we're not, so it doesn't hit us in the same way. But yeah. Okay, so now we're moving on to Runo number 32. Ilmarinen has bought him, but because of his kind of bear son-ish qualities, he keeps Kullervo isolated. And what kind of job are you going to give someone that you want to keep far off at a distance? You make him a shepherd. Shepherds take care of the cattle, the sheep out on the hill somewhere. You don't have to see them, don't have to talk to them. And the person who sends him off to do this job is the wife of Ilmarinen.
Yeah.
So why don't you?
Whose name means daughter of the north or something like that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Why don't you continue on with this?
Kullervoinen, wizard servant of the blacksmith Ilmarinen, purchased slave from Untamoinen, magic son with sky blue stockings, with a head of golden ringlets. And his jacket was yellow. Oh, sorry. In his shoes of marten leather, waiting little, asked the blacksmith, asked the host for work at morning. In the evening, asked the hostess. These the words of Kullervoinen: give me work at early morning, in the evening occupation, labor worthy of thy servant. He's willing to work. People say the youths aren't willing to work today, but look, here's Kullervo, super willing to work. Then the wife of Ilmarinen, once the maiden of the rainbow, thinking long and long debating how to give the young youth employment, how the purchased slave could labor, finally a shepherd made him keeper of her pastures. But the over-scornful hostess baked a biscuit for the herdsman, baked a loaf of wondrous thickness, baked the lower half of oatmeal, and the upper half of barley, and baked a flint stone in the center. Sorry, flint stone, wasn't...
Flintstone?
Not a Flintstone in the center, a flint stone
Big
in the center.
Fred, Wilma, Bam Bam.
Yabba Dabba Dooey. Poured around it liquid butter, Then she gave it to the shepherd, food to still the herdsman hunger. Thus she gave the youth instructions, do not eat the bread in hunger till the herd is in the woodlands.
Yeah. So she sends him off, and she makes this loaf of bread, but it's got a flint stone inside it. A flint stone. I didn't even think of that until just now.
But I should have said flint stone, and I said flintstone, and I was like, uh oh, we're in danger now.
Dun, 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 dun,
We
dun,
are
dun,
about
dun, dun.
Kullervo is about to have a yabba dabba do time though. Like, let's see,
it's absolutely true. All right, yes, we're challenging our listenership. Come up with a song about Kullervo to the tune of the theme of the Flintstones.
Yeah, make it happen, guys. In the comments, I want to see it by the end of this episode.
Absolutely. So, yeah, okay. Now, much of this Runo. So we're going to actually,
guys, if you come up with a good one, I will sing it on air. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
We're going to actually abridge this Runo significantly. Much of this Runo is a charm against demonic attack, wherein Ilmarinen's wife asks Ukko, who is the high god, the most high god of the Finnish pantheon, and also she calls upon various forest spirits for protection for her cattle against the likes of Lempo. Remember Lempo? Lempo, this kind of devil sort of figure, right? But we're not going to skip over all of that. I'm going to give you some so you can get some sense of this sort of magical charm that's in here. Okay, so I'm going to read. Then the wife of Ilmarinen sent her cattle to the pasture, thus addressing Kullervoinen. Drive the cows to yonder bowers, to the birch trees and the aspens, that they there may feed and fatten, fill themselves with milk and butter. In the open forest pastures, on the distant hills and mountains, in the glens among the birch trees, in the lowlands with the aspens, in the golden pine tree forests, in the thickets silver laden. And now here's the charm. Guard them, O thou kind creator, shield them, omnipresent Ukko. So this is a Christianization. Gods are not omnipresent in paganism. Shield them, omnipresent Ukko, shelter them from every danger, and protect them from all evil, that they may not want nor wander from the paths of peace and plenty. As at home thou didst protect them in the shelters and the hurdles. Guard them now beneath the heavens, shelter them in woodland pastures, that the herds may live and prosper to the joy of Northland's hostess and against the will of Lempo. If my herdsmen prove unworthy, if the shepherd maids seem evil, let the pastures be their shepherds, let the alders guard the cattle, make the birch tree their protector, let the willow drive them homeward, ere the hostess go to seek them, ere the milkmaids wait and worry. Should the birch tree not protect them, nor the aspen lend assistance, nor the linden be their keeper, nor the willow drive them homeward, wilt thou give them better herdsmen, let creation's beauteous daughters be their kindly shepherdesses. Thou hast many lovely maidens, many hundreds that obey thee, in the ether's spacious circles, beauteous daughters of creation. So now she's going to call upon some of these beauteous daughters of creation. Summer daughter, magic maiden, southern mother of the woodlands, pine tree daughter, Katayatar, Pilayatar. Wow, here we go.
Pilayatar. Like you gave this one to yourself.
Thank you. Of the aspen, alder maiden, Tapio's daughter, daughter of the glen Miliki. Put a star next to that one. And the mountain maid Kullervo, of my herds be ye protectors, keep them from the evil-minded, keep them safe in days of summer, in the times of fragrant flowers, while the tender leaves are whispering, while the earth is verdure-laden. Summer daughter, charming maiden, southern mother of the woodlands, spread abroad thy robes of safety, spread thine apron o'er the forest, let it cover all my cattle and protect the unprotected, that no evil winds may harm them, may not suffer from the storm clouds. Guard my flocks from every danger, keep them from the hands of wild beasts, from the swamps with sinking pathways, from the springs that bubble trouble. That's a great translation. From the swiftly running waters, from the bottom of the whirlpool, that they may not find misfortune, may not wander to destruction, in the marshes sink and perish, though against God's best intentions, though against the will of Ukko. Okay, so that's the charm. I told you to put a asterisk next to Miliki. And all of you D&D fans out there, especially you fans of the Forgotten Realms, should recognize that name. Is that not so, Deacon Seraphim? Oh, Master of Dungeons.
I'm not actually a Forgotten Realms fan. It's very basic.
I need to look for pearls around here so I can clutch them. Wow.
I mean, I get the reference, but it's
okay.
I'm not a Forgotten Realms fan.
You didn't mention this to me before, or maybe I blocked it out because because hurtful to contemplate.
I'm really an old school D&D guy, so when I'm playing D&D, I like to play
Greyhawk,
old school, which usually means I have my own setting, and I do take a lot of inspiration from Greyhawk. I love the fact, for instance, in Greyhawk, that the main lawful cleric patron is not a pagan deity, but rather Saint Cuthbert.
Saint Cuthbert. It's so funny.
And that's just so glorious. I don't know why it's that way. I mean, I know why it's that way, but it's just such a funny thing.
It's so funny.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
So Miliki, for those of you who don't catch that reference, in the Forgotten Realms world of D&D, she is basically the forest goddess. She's like the patron saint of rangers. So if you're a fan of the Drizzt Do'Urden series by R.A. Salvatore, you will have seen her mentioned a bunch of times. She functions as his kind of patron goddess. So, this is where those people got that name, is from Finnish mythology. Well, Finno-Ugric mythology, right? I just wanted to put that out there for all those of you who might have recognized that. Yes. Okay. So the charm's pronounced. She now sends them off. And why don't you go ahead and just finish out this part of the runo?
Then the wife of Ilmarinen, life companion of the blacksmith, opened all her yards and stables, led her herd across the meadow, placed them in the herdman's keeping in the care of Kullervoinen. Yeah. So the idea is she's sending him off to watch the cattle, but she's also abusing him by baking stones into the bread that she's making him. And so she's praying for all this protection on her flock, but then she's also abusing the shepherd who's supposed to watch over them. Yeah. So we'll see if treating your employees in this way leads to good results.
Yes, exactly. What's fun is the next runo, number 33, is titled by. I don't think Lone Rot gave titles to the runos. I don't remember, but anyways,
don't know.
In the Crawford edition, the Crawford translation, he titles Runo 33, Kullervo and the Cheat Cake, which is great. Cheat Cake. Okay, so Kullervo takes the cattle into the forest, and he sits down, and he sings, which is what shepherds do. Yeah. And he laments. Say again?
Famously so.
Exactly. Many such cases.
All the best poetry written by shepherds about shepherds for shepherds.
That's such a pastoral thing for you to say.
Well, I mean, it's just that's the.
You're welcome.
That's the motto of my shepherd only dating service, onlyshepherds.com.
Wow. So as he sings, he laments that he is not even in Smithy.
There's a whole genre. I just have to say, there's a whole genre of literature in the ancient world called pastoral literature or pastoral poems, and they're always about shepherds on hillsides, and girl shepherd meets boy shepherd. Tale as old of time. So they're all like love stories, and they're all happening out in the hills as opposed to like in the gross, dirty cities. Anyway, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yes. So he laments that he's not in the smithy, and he laments also that he's not with his lost people, who of course are dead at this point in the story. Oh. So I'll read the next part of this. While the shepherd lad was singing Kullervoinen's song and echo, Ilmarinen's wife was feasting on the sweetest bread of Northland, on the toothsome cakes of barley, on the richest of provisions, only laid aside some cabbage for the herdsman Kullervoinen, set apart some wasted fragments, leavings of the dogs at dinner, for the shepherd home returning. Welcome home, Kullervo. Here's some scraps of kapusta. From the woods a bird came flying, sang this song to Kullervoinen. Always listen to what birds tell you in fairy tale stories, by the way. 'Tis the time for forest dinners, for the fatherless companion of the herds to eat his viands, eat the good things from his basket. Although I don't know which side the bird is on. Kullervoinen heard the songster, looked upon the sun's long shadow, straightway spake the words that follow. True, the singing of the songbird, it is It is time indeed for feasting, time to eat my basket dinner. Thereupon young Kullervoinen called his herd to rest in safety, sat upon a grassy hillock, took his basket from his shoulders, took therefrom the arid oat loaf, turned it over in his fingers, carefully the loaf inspected, spake these words of ancient wisdom. Many loaves are fine to look on the outside seem delicious, on the inside chaff and ten bark. Foreshadowing, foreshadowing. Then the shepherd Kullervoinen drew his knife to cut his oat loaf, cut the hard and arid biscuit, cuts against a stone imprisoned, well embedded in the center, breaks his ancient knife in pieces. When the shepherd youth Kullervo saw his magic knife had broken, weeping sore he spake as follows, This the blade that I'd hold sacred, this the one thing that I honor, relic of my mother's people, on the stone within this oat loaf, on this cheat cake of the hostess, I, my precious, new from hostess, cheat cakes, I, my precious knife have broken. How shall I repay this insult? How avenge this woman's malice? What the wages for deception? So it's interesting, like, he breaks his special magic relic knife that we've never heard of up until this point.
Yeah, the idea is that this is the only thing that he's brought with him from home when he was sold into slavery.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly.
This is the straw that breaks the camel's back, so to speak.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. So, yeah, I mean, again, this is a crime against eating, right? A crime against life. You know, so I mean, Kullervo is not a great guy, but no one treats him well, hardly either. You know, everybody hates him, basically. Yeah, so he's really mad, he's enraged, and he's trying to come up with a way to get his revenge. And then, as I said, you should always listen to birds and fairy tales. A raven comes to him and speaks to him. So why don't you read this conversation?
From a tree, the raven answered, O thou little silver buckle, only son of old Kullervo, why art thou in evil humor? Wherefore sad in thy demeanor? I'm not doing my raven voice for you guys. You guys haven't earned that today.
It's a little too much. It's a little too much for this one. A little too much.
No, it's not. Well, yeah, I mean, I just have to catch me in a better mood, guys. You know, you know, I still haven't seen that good Flintstones riff in the comic.
Kind of in a Kullervo mood right now, I guess.
Yeah. I guess, yeah. All right. Why art thou in evil humor? Wherefore sad in thy demeanor? Take a young shoot from the thicket. Take a birch rod from the valley. Drive thy herd across the lowlands, through the quicksands of the marshes. To the wolves let one half wander. To the bear dens lead the other. Sing the forest wolves together. Sing the bears down from the mountains. Call the wolves thy little children, and the bears thy standard bearers. Let drive them like a cowherd homeward. Drive them home like spotted cattle. Drive them to thy master's milk yards. Thus thou wilt repay the hostess for her malice and derision. Thereupon the wizard answered, these the words of Kullervoinen. Wait, yea, wait, thou bride of Hisi, do I mourn my mother's relic? Mourn the keepsake thou hast broken? Thou thyself shalt mourn as sorely when thy cows come home at evening. From the tree he cuts a birch wand, from the juniper a whipstick, drives the herd across the lowlands through the quicksands of the marshes, to the wolves lets one half wander, to the bear dens leads the other, calls the wolves his little children, calls the bears his standard bearers, changes all his herd of cattle into wolves and bears by magic. By the way, there are two basic ways to turn cows into wolves and bears. One is to feed them into wolves and bears, in which they will become wolves and bears, and the other is to magically transform them. So Kullervo is doing both of those things here. In the west, the sun is shining, telling that the night is coming. Quick the wizard, Kullervoinen, wanders o'er the pine tree mountain, hastens through the forest homeward, drives the wolves and bears before him towards the milk yards of the hostess. To the herd he speaks as follows, as they journey on together, tear and kill the wicked hostess, tear her guilty flesh in pieces, when she comes to view her cattle, when she stoops to do her milking.
Yeah.
So she's going to come out to do the milking in the evening, and then all the cows are going to turn into wolves and bears and turn and tear her to pieces.
Yeah.
This is the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of an Elisha moment as well, you know, to some extent. Not exactly, but yeah. Okay. So again, you've got you got food and death, right, being connected here. Like these should be generating food, but they're going to kill and eat you, right? Well, not you, but the one he calls bride of Hisi. So, I mean, that's, it doesn't come across super nasty, but I mean, you remember what Hisi is. It's kind of this demonic little forest god. To call her the bride of Hisi is not a nice thing to say the least. So, yeah. All right. Moving on. Then the wizard Kullervoinen from an ox bone makes a bugle, makes it from Twiniki's cow horn, makes a flute from Kirio's shin bone, plays a song upon his bugle, plays upon his flute of. Those are the names of some of the cattle, by the way. Plays a song upon his bugle, plays upon his flute of magic, thrice upon the homeland hilltops, 6 times near the coming gateways. So now this is actually where what the raven said is playing out. Ilmarinen's wife and hostess long had waited for the coming of her herd with Kullervoinen, waited for the milk at evening, waited for the new made butter. She's thinking about food. Heard the footsteps in the cow path. On the heath she heard the bustle. It should not be beard, it should be heard. Spake these joyous words of welcome. Be thou praised, O gracious Ukko, that my herd is home returning. But I hear a bugle sounding. 'Tis the playing of my herdsman, playing on a magic cow horn, bursting all our ears with music. Kullervoinen, drawing near to the hostess, spake as follows. Found the bugle in the woodlands, and the flute among the rushes. All thy herd are in the passage, all thy cows within the hurdles. This the time to build the campfire, this the time to do the milking. Ilmarinen's wife, the hostess, thus addressed an aged servant. Go, thou old one, to the milking, have the care of all my cattle, do not ask for mine assistance, since I have to knead the biscuit. Kullervoinen spake as follows. Always does the worthy hostess, ever does the wisdom mother, go herself and do the milking, tend the cows within the hurdles. In other words, don't send a servant, you should be doing this milking yourself. Then the wife of Ilmarinen built he's not really a smart one, right? Shouldn't you be doing the milking? Then the wife of Ilmarinen built a field fire in the passage, went to milk her cows awaiting, looked upon her herd in wonder, spake these happy words of greeting, beautiful my herd of cattle, glistening like the skins of lynxes, hair as soft as fur of ermine, peaceful waiting for the milk pail. On the milk stool sits the hostess, milks one moment, then a second, then a third time milks and ceases. When the bloody wolves disguising quick attack the hostess milking, and the bears lend their assistance, tear and mutilate her body with their teeth and sharpened fingers. Kullervoinen, cruel wizard, thus repaid the wicked hostess, thus repaid her evil treatment. Quick the wife of Ilmarinen cried aloud in bitter anguish, thus addressed the youth Kullervo. Evil son, thou bloody herdsman, thou hast brought me wolves and malice, driven bears within my hurdles. These the words of Kullervoinen, have I evil done as shepherd, worse the conduct of my hostess, baked a stone inside my oat cake, on the inside, way worse. I mean, mean, super mean, for sure. But, yeah. Worse the...
Finish that section and then I'll say
Baked a stone inside my oatcake, on the inside rock and tan bark, on the stone my knife was broken, treasure of my mother's household, broken virtue of my people. All right.
So to mention, like, okay, in what sense reading charitably? I don't know. Let's just like take Kullervo totally seriously for a second. Okay. Why is what she does to him worse than what he does to her? There's a few different levels on which her transgression is worse, in the sense that he's a stranger from another land, right? So there is some violation of the guest host relationship, and also there is an ancient idea. People will be surprised to learn, but there's an ancient idea that the master, the slave owner, has a higher duty to the slave than vice versa. So, like, slaves, it's kind of expected that slaves will disobey and try to escape because they're slaves. That is why St. Paul has to tell slaves, obey your masters, but he tells masters, like, don't be cruel to your slaves, right? And so So in this case, because she's in a place of higher authority, she's in a place of greater power. She's this great woman. She's the wife of this goddess. All these things, you can kind of make a case for saying her behavior was petty, uncalled for, but also, ultimately she's trying to kill him.
Yeah. Although Savannah says, I feel like eating a rock wouldn't actually hurt Kullervo, though.
Well, that's a very good point. Now, if this were an Irish story, you'd find out rocks baked into oatcakes is literally the one thing that can kill him. That's like his actual kryptonite. That's not how this story goes.
No.
That's not how this story goes. But
Find
anyway,
out what can kill him.
Yeah. So what he's doing is like really extreme, but it's kind of similar, actually. The whole point of, it's funny because isn't that what Christ asked? Like, which one of your, children will ask for bread and you give them a stone, right? Something like that. But it's the same kind. So here, there's this thing that's supposed to be food, in this case, the milk cows, but actually it's going to turn on you and kill you and destroy you, right? And so it's kind of, you can see how the two things are related. I'm not saying this is a proportional response.
No.
Not saying that, no. But you can see where he's coming from.
Kullervo is a hero frankly, I think, on some level, in the classical sense. He's although not a monster killer.
He doesn't found any cities, though. That's the thing.
It's true. And he doesn't kill any monsters. But he's still this super dangerous, deadly, object. Okay. Yeah. So what happens next is that Ilmarinen's wife asks Kullervo to release her from the attacks of the wild animals, like call off the bears and the wolves. But he essentially says, more or less, go to hell. Right. Yeah. So then she responds this way. Why don't you read the rest of this?
Ilmarinen's wife made answer, Ukko, thou, O God in heaven, span the strongest of thy crossbows. Test the weapon by thy wisdom. Lay an arrow forged from copper on the crossbow of thy forging. Rightly aim thy flaming arrow. With thy magic hurl the missile. Shoot this wizard through the vitals. Pierce the heart of Kullervoinen with the lightning of the heavens. With thine arrows tipped with copper. Kullervoinen prays as follows, Ukko, God of truth and justice, do not slay thy magic servant. Slay the wife of Ilmarinen. Kill in her the worst of women. In these hurdles let her perish, lest she wander hence in freedom to perform some other mischief, do some greater deed of malice. So they're asking the Most High God to basically choose between them. And right. Quick as lightning fell the hostess. Quick the wife of Ilmarinen fell and perished in the hurdles on the ground before her cottage. Thus the death of Northland's hostess, cherished wife of Ilmarinen, once the maiden of the rainbow, wooed and watched for many summers, pride and joy of Kalevala.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, we're halfway. Moving on to runa number 34, which is titled by Crawford, Kullervo finds his tribe folk. At this point, you might be asking yourself, what? Because they're all dead. Aren't they all dead? Like Untamo kills them all. Like the whole thing is about how they're all dead except for his mom, who's pregnant with him.
But as you will learn, they're only mostly dead.
Right, exactly. There's no explanation that they had escaped. Nothing like this. And so the scholarly analysis of this is basic, and this was the big thing that Tolkien was trying to fix when he wanted to do his own version. A lot of scholars basically say that this is one of these indications that Lone wrote when he collected these stories, that they weren't consistent with each other. And so he's kind of putting them together, like he's the one who made this order. Each runa is kind of its own story.
Yeah.
As you've noticed. He's putting them together in a certain order and trying to make them connect, but probably different versions, maybe from different regions, just work differently. In this version now, it seems like we've now moved into tradition 2 or whatever. I don't know. Although it still kind of continues the story, and that's clearly what Lone Word is trying to do here. In this version, he had lost his family, but they're all alive. They're living off in the forest. We don't know if they were exiled or what, but it's not consistent. It's just not consistent. There's no explanation given as to how they're suddenly alive here.
Well, it's because Turin was just made to think that his mother and sister were killed by the ensorcelment of Glaurung, you see.
Right. Well, so that's, so it's interesting when Tolkien goes and writes the Turin story, he's continuing to work on this problem, the Kullervo problem, and kind of writes it into that. So,
by the way, I would just say, if you were out there as an aspiring teller of tales and myths and legends, this is one of the best things to do, is to look for a problem, an apparent problem in a traditional story, and then try to resolve it. And I don't mean like try to rewrite it in a sort of Marxist, critical theory, post-structuralist way. But I just mean look for problems or apparent contradictions in these old stories, and then try to say, well, what's the story that would resolve them? And that this is what Tom Shippey calls writing into the gaps, which is something he was very good at.
Cool. All right. So, Runa 34. So Kullervo leaves his captivity by Ilmarinen, and then Ilmarinen discovers his wife is dead. And even though this is like not a super important piece of narrative that I'm about to read, I don't know. I was kind of touched by it, and so I just want to include it. So I'm going to read this part. Kullervoinen, young magician, in his beauteous golden ringlets, in his magic shoes of deerskin, left the home of Ilmarinen, wandered forth upon his journey, ere the blacksmith heard the tidings of the cruel death and torture of his wife and joy companion, lest a bloody fight should follow. Kullervoinen left the smithy, blowing on his magic bugle. Joyful left the lands of Ilma, in other words, Ilmarinen's area, right? Notice the name. Blowing blithely on the heather, made the distant hills re-echo, made the swamps and mountains tremble, made the heather blossoms answer to the music of his cow horn, in its wild reverberations, to the magic of his playing. Songs were heard within the smithy, and the blacksmith stopped and listened, hastened to the door and window, hastened to the open courtyard, if perchance he might discover what was playing on the heather, what was sounding through the forest. Quick he learned the cruel story, learned the cause of the rejoicing, saw the hostess dead before him, knew his beauteous wife had perished, saw the lifeless form extended in the courtyard of his dwelling. Thereupon the metal artist fell to bitter tears and wailings, wept through all the dreary night time, deep the grief that settled o'er him, black as night his darkened future could not stay his tears of sorrow. Kullervoinen hastened onward, straying, roaming hither-thither, wandered on through field and forest, o'er the hissy plains and woodlands. When the darkness settled o'er him, when the bird of night was flitting, sat the fatherless at evening. The forsaken sat and rested on a hillock of the forest. I love that passage where Ilmarinen discovers his wife is dead and is sorrowing over her. I mean, it's again, like, this is not an Indo-European story. It's not an Indo-European god. There's something different about, I don't know, there's something different about him versus a lot of the sort of the gods, the great gods, of some of these other epic tales, that here's this god finds his wife dead and, he's weeping over her. I don't know. I really like this part. It really touched me when I read it again. Interesting. I also want to just point out, it says that Kullervo is going over the hissy plains and woodlands. Again, this sense of them being inhabited by spirits, this is the spirit's territory. That's where he is. He's kind of in this dark places between things. So any comments on any of that before you read the next section?
I don't think so. I'll be interested to hear, we definitely have to do the Wayland story. I'm kind of of two minds of what we should do next. Although I'm starting to think we might do a 2-part on Kullervo. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. I think we get through. I think we can get through this.
Anyway, I'm of kind of 2 minds, maybe 3 now, about what we should do next. But one of the things we should definitely do very soon is to do the Wayland story, which will definitely be another parental advisory one. But it's
my divine ancestor.
Pretty incredible.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so thus he murmured, heavy-hearted, "Why was I alas created? Why was I so ill-begotten, since for months and years I wander, lost among the ether spaces? Others have their homes to dwell in, others hasten to their firesides as the evening gathers round them. But my home is in the forest, and my bed upon the heather, and my bathroom is the rain cloud. Never didst thou, God of mercy, never in the course of ages give an infant birth unwisely. Wherefore then was I created? Fatherless to roam in ether, motherless and lone to wander. O thou Ukko art my father. Thou hast given me form and feature as the seagull on the ocean. As the duck upon the waters shines the sun upon the swallow, shines as bright upon the sparrow, gives the joy bird song and gladness, does not shine on me unhappy. Nevermore will shine the sunlight, never will the moonlight glimmer on this hapless son and orphan. Do not know my hero father, cannot tell who was my mother. On the shore, perhaps the gray duck left me in the sand to perish. Young was I and small of stature when my mother left me orphaned. Dead my father and my mother, dead my honored tribes of heroes. Shoes they left me that are icy, stockings filled with frost of ages. Let me on in the freezing ice plains fall to perish in the rushes. From the giddy heights of mountains let me tumble to destruction. O thou wise and good Creator, why my birth and what my service? I shall never fall and perish on the ice plains and the marshes, never be a bridge in swampland, not while I have arms of virtue that can serve my honored kindred. Then Kullervo thought to journey to the village of Untamo to avenge his father's murder, to avenge his mother's tortures, and the troubles of his tribefolk. These the words of Kullervoinen. Wait, yea, wait, thou Untamoinen, thou destroyer of my people. When I meet thee in the combat, I will slay thee and thy kindred. I will burn thy homes to ashes.
Yeah. Dead my father and my mother, dead my honored tribe of heroes. Shoes that left me that are icy, stockings filled with frosts of ages. Right, there's a sense of loss. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, like, Kullervo is not a sympathetic hero. And yet, there's moments like this, I think this is part of why I think this is such a compelling tale and a compelling character, is that he's a bad guy, but he's also, is he more wronged than wrong?
Father,
he's definitely
not
wrong.
A bad guy. He's just bad at being good.
There we go. That's right. I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way, to a quote from. Yeah, nice. I'm glad you caught that. That's good. Yeah. I mean, there's we'll talk about this maybe, but there's a whole lot of like fate and free will stuff going on here, nature, nurture, right? Okay, so he's pondering vengeance. Came a woman on the highway, dressed in blue, the aged mother. Now, there seems to be that this is some kind of spirit. Okay. To Kullervo spake as follows, Whither goest, Kullervoinen? Whither hastes the wayward hero? Kullervoinen gave this answer, I have thought that I would journey to the far-off land of strangers, to the village of Untama, to avenge my father's murder, to avenge my mother's tortures, and the troubles of my tribefolk. Thus the gray-haired woman answered, Surely thou dost rest in error, for thy tribe has never perished, and thy mother still is living, with thy father in the Northland, living with the old Kullervo. This is Kullervo responding, O thou ancient dame beloved, worthy mother of the woodlands, tell me where my father liveth, where my loving mother lingers. Yonder lives thine aged father, and thy loving mother with him, on the farthest shore of Northland, on the long point of the fish lake. Tell me, O thou woodland mother, how to journey to my people, how to find mine honored tribefolk. So this is, aren't they all supposed to be dead? Okay, so if I were to try to reconcile this problem, I would point at they are in what this woman, this spirit, refers to as the Northland. And you remember that in the mythic landscape of a lot of these people, the Northland is not just, where it's really cold. It's, on some level, it's the place of the dead. On some level, it's kind of the other world, right? So that's how I would make this sort of work, is like that this is, you want to see your mother and your father, you need to go to the place of the dead. That's how I would make this work. And that's where he kind of engages with them, and would also explain some of what we're going to see a little bit later, which is how deeply weird their behavior to each other is. All it is. Like, it's a weird, messed up family from this point on. Deeply messed up. So anyway, I don't know that would work perfectly, but that's just the thought that comes to my head. I don't know. Do you have a way of like, do you have a thought about how you would make this work?
I don't know enough about Finnish beliefs about the other afterlife. I mean, I know a little bit, but
yeah, me neither.
To be like totally, I mean, I like your idea in general. I just don't know enough about it to know if that would be like an accurate reading. Certainly, in general, peoples in the north tended to have a very sort of dualistic: north is cold and dead, and south is warm and light.
Relatively speaking.
Relatively speaking. Yeah. Like southern Finland is not like,
Southern Finland is basically like mid-northern Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, to me, it seems like the easiest solution here is that, Kullervo has a version of things that he's been told as a youth, like
okay.
his mother is basically taken while all the men have gone off to fight a war, and she's alone at the house. Right. And then he shows up he says, I've already killed all the men in your family. And so then she shows him, like, she's basically by force, she shows him the way to her father's household, and then they also all get killed. But the easy solution is that, of course, Untamo was lying, and that actually Kullervo's father escaped, and some of the men from the battle also escaped and survived. They've been sort of living this kind of half life, in the north, in the woods, in the cold, up with the wolves, living basically as outlaws. Yeah. And they've kind of survived in that way. And his mother raises Kullervo to think that he's dead until at 3 months old, he's taken, given all these jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And his mother just kind of fades out of the picture. Right. So it's easy enough to say at some point she gets away, she escapes. She her husband gets, a word, a message to her, and she's able to escape. And then that's going to lead to the events that happen next. So maybe something like that.
Yeah.
It's a little more prosaic than your explanation, maybe, but I think that you could still do some of those things. A lot of times the supernatural works the best in a story like this if you kind of ground it in kind of like, don't say, oh, you have to go to the magical land of the dead to find your, but it's just like,
no,
obvious.
Go north.
It's obviously, yes, go north. It's obvious that, when you get up there, it's like these people are only half alive because they're not part of human society. I mean, for an ancient person, that's indistinguishable from death. Like death and exile are the same thing.
Yeah. So, okay. So this figure, she tells him how to find his family. She says it's going to be a 3-day journey. So he journeys, and he eventually comes to a cabin in the woods, and there they are.
Quick
so
he journeys. Quick he journeys to the cabin. Quick he passes through the portals of the cottage on the headland, where he finds his long-lost kindred. No one knows the youth, Kullervo. No one knows whence comes the stranger, where his home, nor where he goeth. These the words of young Kullervo. Dost thou know me not, my mother? Dost thou know me not, my father? I am hapless Kullervoinen, whom the heroes of Untamo carried to their distant country when my height was but a handbreadth. Quick, the hopeful mother answers, O my worthy son, beloved, O my precious silver buckle, hast thou with thy mind of magic wandered through the fields of Northland searching for thy home and kindred? As one dead I long have mourned thee, had supposed thee in Manala. Once I had 2 sons and heroes, had 2 good and beauteous daughters. 2 of these have long been absent, elder son and elder daughter. For the wars my son departed, while my daughter strayed and perished. If my son is home returning, yet my daughter still is absent. Kullervoinen asked his mother, Whither did my sister wander? What direction did she journey? This the answer of the mother, This is the story of thy sister. Went for berries to the woodlands, to the mountains went my daughter, where the lovely maiden vanished, where my pretty berry perished, died some death. Yeah, I like how she calls her sons like my silver buckle and her daughter's my pretty berry.
I know. I don't know how faithful that is to the original Finnish, but it's so great in English.
Yeah, it is nice. It is nice. Died some death beyond my knowledge. Nameless is the death she suffered. Who is mourning for the daughter? No one mourns her as her mother. Walks and wanders, mourns and searches for her fairest child and daughter. Therefore did the mother wander, searching for thy lovely sister. Like the bear she roamed the forest, ran the glenways like the adder, searched one day and then a second, searched the third from morn till even, till she reached the mountain summit. There she called and called her daughter, till the distant mountains answered, called to her who had departed. Where art thou, my lovely maiden? Come, my daughter, to thy mother. Thus I called, and sought thy sister. This the answer of the mountains. Thus the hills and valleys echoed. Call no more, thou weeping mother, weep no more for the departed. Nevermore in all thy lifetime, never in the course of ages will she join again her kindred, at her brother's landing places, in her father's humble dwelling.
Yeah, so this sets up now the main arc for the last part of the story here. And there's one point, another reference. So the mother says to Kullervo that she thought that he was in Manala, not to be confused with Manila. And you notice that la ending, that's place, right? So Manala, this is the underworld. This is the place of the dead. Also, you'll see the name Tuonela. So Tuoni is the god of the dead, Tuonela, the place of the dead. So that's what she thought he was dead, basically, is what it is. And she thinks, of course, that her daughter is dead, but it's emphasized that she's just missing. And when she gets this, the hills and the valleys answer her as she's sort of searching for her daughter, basically says, don't weep anymore. She's never going to come back. So she thinks she's dead. She thinks she's dead. So, all right. Runo number 35. This one is titled by Crawford, Kullervo's Evil Deeds. That's not setting up for what's about to happen at all, is it?
I'm sure this will be fine.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. Here's another reference to his socks. I don't know why I like that so much.
It's always where the evil wizard stuff starts, is with the socks. I mean,
exactly.
If you meet a guy who's just wearing like normal, like maybe some gray argyle socks or anything, this is not anybody who knows any magic. You're going to be fine. But if you meet a guy with crazy stockings, it's a better than zero chance.
Well, and the whole this figures in the Wizard of Oz in the film version, right? There's the Wicked Witch of the East. You get to see her stockings. I don't know. Anyway, Kullervoinen, youthful wizard, in his blue and scarlet stockings, he's been changing his socks out, which is good. He's changing his socks out. Henceforth lingered with his parents, but he could not change his nature, could not gain a higher wisdom, could not win a better judgment. As a child, he was ill-nurtured, early rocked in stupid cradles, by a nurse of many follies, by a minister of evil. That's interesting. It seems to suggest that the reason why he's so messed up is that he was badly rocked as a baby. I mean, that's what it's saying here.
Yeah, that's right. That is, yes. We'll get
again inconsistent too.
Well, I mean, we'll get the end of this, but of course, no, it's not inconsistent at all. Like, how did he rock himself? How was he rocked as a baby?
True.
He rocked himself.
He rocked himself. That's true.
Like,
that's
listen,
true. Okay,
you can't let your kids raise themselves, you guys. Like, they will grow up like this.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
Okay, so he takes up he takes up various tasks. So like there's an echo here of the Untamo, the story when he's with Untamo, right? So he takes up various tasks. He goes fishing, but he rows the boat. By the way,
guys, there's a great, I know you're all working on your Flintstones lyrics. There's a great bedrock pun in here somewhere. So just come on. You can do it. I believe.
So he goes fishing, he rows his boat to pieces, he shreds the nets for the salmon, he beats the salmon into a pulp. And so his dad is like, this guy is like breaking, smashing, destroying everything. And so he's like, maybe, why don't you, here's some money, son. Why don't you go pay my taxes? Like, why don't you go somewhere away from everything? So, okay.
Accounting is what the children desire.
That's right. Continue on. Thereupon the son Kullervo, hapless youth in purple vestments, in his magic shoes of deerskin, in his locks of golden color, sallied forth to pay the taxes, pay the tribute for his people. When the youth had paid the tribute, paid the yearly contribution, he returned to join the snow sledge, because this is how you get around, okay? took his place upon the crossbench, snapped his whip above the courser, and began his journey homeward, rattled on along the highway, measured as he galloped onward Wainamoinen's hills and valleys, and his fields and cultivation. So remember Wainamoinen when we discussed him before? He's the guy who kind of shapes the world. He's a sort of world-shaping god. Okay.
He made all this stuff, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Came a golden maid to meet him. On her snowshoes came a virgin, o'er the hills of Wainamoinen, o'er his cultivated lowlands. Quick the wizard's son, Kullervo, checked the motion of his racer, thus addressed the charming maiden, "Come, sweet maiden, to my snow sledge, in my fur robes rest and linger." As she ran, the maiden answered, "Let the death maid sit beside thee, rest and linger in thy fur robes." A curious nickname she gave herself. Thereupon the youth...
No, in this case, she's saying, like, no way, Jose, is what she's saying.
I know.
She's like, let death should come and do the thing with you that you're wanting to do with me.
Yeah, I know, but still. Anyways. Thereupon the youth Kullervo snapped his whip above the courser. Fleet as wind he gallops homeward, dashes down along the highway. With the roar of falling waters, gallops onward, 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 o'er the broad back of the ocean, o'er the icy plains of Lapland. Comes a winsome maid to meet him, golden-haired and wearing snowshoes. On the far outstretching ice plains, quick the wizard checks his racer, charmingly accosts the maiden, chanting carefully these measures, "Come, thou beauty, to my snow sledge, hither come and rest and linger." Tauntingly the maiden answered, "Take Tuoni to thy snow sledge." Okay, remember Tuoni? God of death. Right? "At thy side let Mana, goddess of death, sit with thee and rest and linger." Quick the wizard, I mean, it's funny, dark, as we'll find out, but funny. Quick the wizard Kullervoinen struck his fiery prancing racer with the birch whip of his father. Like the lightning flew the fleet foot. Again, great translation. Galloped on the highway homeward, o'er the hills the snow sledge bounded, and the coming mountains trembled. Kullervoinen, wild magician, measures on his journey homeward Northland's far extending borders and the fertile plains of Pohja. Comes a beauteous, we'll put a star next to that, comes a beauteous maid to meet him with a tin pin on her bosom on the heather of Pohjola, o'er the Pohja hills and moorlands. Okay, so Pohjala is a sort of mystical, harsh northern land. You know, that's the deal. Now it's sort of on the edge of the other world, sort of. All right, continuing on. This is long, but we need to kind of put it all together. Quick the wizard's son, Kullervo, holds the bridle of his courser, charmingly intones these measures. "Come, fair maiden, to my snow sledge. In these fur robes rest and linger. Eat with me the golden apples, eat the hazelnut in joyance, drink with me the beer delicious, eat the dainties that I give thee." This the answer of the maiden with the tin pin on her bosom. "I have scorned to give thy snow sledge, scorned for thee, thou wicked wizard. Cold is it beneath thy fur robes, and thy sledge is chill and cheerless." Thereupon the youth Kullervo, wicked wizard of the Northland, drew the maiden to his snow sledge, drew her to a seat beside him, quickly in his furs enwrapped her, and the tin adored made answer, these the accents of the maiden. "Loose me from thy magic power, let me leave at once thy presence, lest I speak in wicked accents, lest I say the prayer of evil. Free me now as I command thee, or I'll tear thy sledge to pieces, throw these fur robes to the north winds." Straightway wicked Kullervoinen, evil wizard and magician, opens all his treasure boxes, shows the maiden gold and silver, shows her silken wraps of beauty, silken hose with golden borders, there's the socks again, golden belts with silver buckles, jewelry that dims the vision, blunts the conscience of the virgin, silver leads one to destruction, gold entices from uprightness. Kullervoinen, wicked wizard, flatters lovingly the maiden, one hand on the reins of leather, one upon the maiden's shoulder. Thus they journey through the evening, pass the night in merrymaking. So,
diamonds are a girl's best friend.
I mean, that's what it's basically kind of saying. You know, at first he's trying to be the golden-tongued guy, and then he starts offering her stuff. You know, yummy food, And then the thing that really gets her attention is,
No.
the sparkly things.
This is a way of basically saying, look, listen, I can take care of you. I'm not just some dude.
Yeah, sure,
You just
of
stick
course.
with me. I'll take good care of you. Certainly by the standards of the time, this is like a reasonable offer, more than generous, right?
Yeah. So, they passed the night in merrymaking.
And
So that means what you think it means, everybody. It doesn't mean just
very
had a few
importantly,
drinks.
He never says, by the way, what was your name or who are your parents?
Oh, we'll get to that.
Easy questions to ask. I'm just saying.
We'll get to that.
If you meet a girl out sledding, like just check.
And so at this point, you might ask the question, is this the time that Kullervo finally does something right? That he doesn't just like smash and destroy, he successfully seduces the girl, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right. It's getting dark here. All right. Yeah, I'm giving you this part, buddy. So here you go.
All right. When the day star led the morning, when the second day was dawning, when the maid addressed Kullervo, questioned thus the wicked wizard, of what tribe art thou descended? Of what race thy hero father? Tell thy lineage and kindred. This Kullervo's truthful answer, am I not from a mighty nation, not the greatest nor the smallest, but my lineage is worthy. Am Kullervo's son of folly, am a child of contradictions, hapless son of cold misfortune. Tell me of thy race of heroes, tell me thine origin and kindred. This the answer of the maiden. Came not from a race primeval, not the eldest nor the smallest, but my lineage is worthy. Am Kullervo's wretched daughter, am his long-lost child of error, am a maid of contradictions, hapless daughter of misfortune. When a child I lived in plenty in the dwellings of my mother. To the woods I went for berries, went for raspberries to uplands, gathered strawberries on mountains, gathered one day, then a second, but alas, upon the third day, could not find the pathway homeward, forestward, then the highway led me. All the footpaths to the woodlands, long I sat in bitter weeping. Wept one day, and then a second, wept the third day from morn till even. Then I climbed a lofty mountain, there I called in wailing accents, and the woodlands gave this answer, thus the distant hills re-echoed. Call no longer, foolish virgin, all thy calls and tears are useless. There is none to give the answer, far away thy home and people. On the third and on the fourth days, on the fifth and sixth and seventh, constantly I sought to perish, but in vain were all my efforts. Could not die upon the mountains if this wretched maid had perished. In the summer of the third year she had fed on earth's vegetation. She had blossomed as a flower, knowing neither pain nor sorrow. Scarcely had the maiden spoken when she bounded from the slow snow sledge, rushed upon the rolling river, to the cataract's commotion, to the fiery stream and whirlpool. Thus Kullervo's lovely sister hastened to her own destruction, to her death by fire and water, found her peace in Tuonela, in the sacred stream of Mana.
Yeah, so they wake up the next morning, they trade genealogy, and they realize they are brother and sister. Yeah, and it's like this stuff that she says here at the end. Oh, I wanted to point out, this is interesting. He describes himself as a child of contradictions. Am Kullervo, son of folly, am a child of contradictions.
Yep.
And then she says something similar. Am a maid of contradictions. Hapless daughter of misfortune. Contradictions. Yeah, I mean, there's so many lines in this that could be like, Kullervo, child of contradictions. Kullervo, dead my father, cold my mother. There's all kinds of lines that really kind of iconically point toward the whole story, Yeah. But I mean, it's so sad what she says here is that she's basically lost, and she was trying to die out in the wilderness because she was lost, and she wanted to become, food for a flower.
She says like, oh, I wish I could have died. If I had just died, then right now I'd be a flower, and I wouldn't have done the thing I just did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, one of the oldest taboos. The one thing you absolutely cannot do. I mean, it's not the one thing. It's like one of 4 things you absolutely cannot do if you want your tribe, your people, your city to cohere.
Yeah. And
that is, of course, the thing that she does.
Yeah. And so then, she leaps off a cliff,
It's exactly the same death, off the cliff into the cataract, into the waterfall, as in Turin.
Yeah. I mean, Tolkien takes this right out of this story when he's doing Turin Bar. So she kills herself basically out of, the first thought I had was, the first word that came to my mind was regret, but I'm like, it's not exactly regret. It's more like horror.
Yeah.
Horror. She's not saying, oh, I shouldn't have done that. It's, oh my Uko. I don't know. Yeah, okay. Then the wicked Kullervoinen fell to weeping, sorely troubled, wailed and wept, and heavy-hearted, spake these words in bitter sorrow, woe is me, my life hard-fated. I have slain my virgin sister. When did he slay her? Anyway, okay. I've slain. I mean, think about that little double entendre there. Very dark. He slew his sister. He slew her virginity. Anyway. Yep. Shamed the daughter of my mother. Woe to thee, my ancient father. Woe to thee, my gray-haired mother. Wherefore was I born and nurtured? Why this hapless child's existence? Better fate to Kullervoinen had he never seen the daylight. Or if born had never thriven in these mournful days of evil. Death has failed to do his duty. Sickness sinned in passing by me. What a line. Should have slain me in the cradle when the 7th day had ended. So he goes back home. He tells his parents what happened. And he vows to make his way into death. And as long as he's headed towards death, might as well take Tama with him, his uncle. Kullervoinen, wicked wizard, answers thus his grieving mother, shall not haste to hide from sorrow, shall not flee from my misconduct. To the jaws of death I hasten, to the open courts of Kalma, to the hunting grounds of Pohja, to the battlefields of heroes. Untamoinen still is leaving, unmolested roams the wicked, unavenged my father's grievance, unavenged my mother's tortures, unavenged the wrongs I suffer. Whew. So
found somebody else whose fault it could be.
Oh man,
what a relief!
Yeah. So Kalma. He says he's going to Kalma. We've heard about Kalma mentioned several times. The word apparently literally means something like the stench of death. So, but it's also used as a kind of what's the word? Is it synecdoche? I can't remember, for the grave, right? No. But also this is a death goddess who sort of hangs out in Tuonela. So kind of anyway. Okay, so we're wrapping up here. Runo 36. So Kullervo readies himself to go to war against Utamo. Actually, if you look, did we lose Deacon Seraphim here? Yeah. Okay. All right. So we've lost Deacon Seraphim for just a second. We're going to, but I'm going to read this part here until we get him back. So hopefully everyone pray that he comes back quickly. So Kullervo readies himself to go to war against Utamo. And if you looked at the thumbnail for this episode, as it appears on YouTube, you'll see this painting, this really, really neat looking painting of Kullervo on top of his horse, and he's got his big horn out next to him that he's blowing. And so that is this scene right here that we're about to read. So this is the final Runo. Okay, so Runo 36. He readies up to 4, and his family comes to him one by one to try to convince him not to leave them all defenseless. Like, hey, we're living out here in the woods. There's all kind of scary things around. You just came home. Won't you stay and kind of defend us? Right? So he has a conversation with his mother, his father, his sister, and his brother. And typical is this exchange that he has with his mother. Okay, so Kullervoinen, wicked wizard, in his purple-colored stockings, so different socks now prepares himself for battle, grinds a long time on his broadsword, sharpens well his trusty weapon, and his mother speaks as follows. Do not go, my son beloved, go not to the wars, my hero. Struggle not with hostile spearsmen, whoso goes to war for nothing. Undertakes a fearful combat, undertakes a fatal issue. Those that war without a reason will be slaughtered for their folly. Easy prey to bows and arrows, go thou with a goat to battle. Shouldst thou go to fight the roebuck, 'tis the goat that will be vanquished, and the roebuck will be slaughtered. With a frog thou'lt journey homeward, victor with but little honor. These the words of Kullervoinen, so he's responding to his mom here. Shall not journey through the marshes, shall not sink upon the heather, on the homeland of the raven, where the eagles scream at daybreak. When I yield my life forever, bravely will I fall in battle, fall upon the field of glory, beautiful to die in armor, and the clang and clash of armies, beautiful the strife for conquest. Thus Kullervo soon will hasten to the kingdom of Tuoni, to the realm of the departed, undeformed by wasting sickness. So he's predicting here that he's going to die in battle. This big sort of glorious, heroic, death as he's fighting against Untamo and all of his people. So then his mother responds, this the answer of the mother. If thou diest in the conflict, who will stay to guard thy father? Who will give thy sire protection? These the words of Kullervoinen, so he's responding now. Let him die upon the courtyard, sleeping out his life of sorrow. So he's basically saying, she says to him, like, if you leave, if you die, who's going to guard your father? And he's like, let him die in the courtyard. Nice. Really nice, buddy. And then she says, who then will protect thy mother, be her shield in times of danger? And he responds, let her die within the stable or the cabin where she lingers. And she says again, who then will defend thy brother, give him aid in times of trouble? Let him die within the forest, sleep his life away unheeded. Who will comfort then thy sister? Who will aid her in affliction? He says, let her sink beneath the waters, perish in the crystal fountain, where the brook flows on in beauty, like a silver serpent winding through the valley to the ocean. It's interesting, okay, so, he's basically saying, I don't care. I don't care what happens to them, let them die. It's interesting the thing he says about the, so remember he has two sisters, right? So there were two boys and two girls. He's one of the boys. It's interesting what he says about his sister, let her die. The death that he clearly has on his mind is the death of the other sister, who just leaped to her death and fell in the river, the cataracts into the waterfall and died, right? What this is so weird. What is his problem? Like, what is his problem with his family, with his father and his sister and his brother? It seems like he has a different relationship with his mother, but what is his problem with them? Why is it that he seems to not care? If something happens to them, he doesn't care if they die and they, he leaves them unprotected because he dies in battle. Is it that he's just like, look, I have to go kill Untamo. I don't care what happens. He's just sort of driven by revenge. Is that what's going on here? Maybe that seems like maybe the most likely answer. Another possibility, this is one that I had, a thought that I had as well, is that this may be what's called a textual ruin. So what's a textual ruin? A textual ruin is when you find in a text a reference that it seems it's referring to some earlier thing, but you don't have that earlier thing in the text, right? So in this case, could there be some other story that Lönnrot did not include or did not hear or whatever, in which he has conflict with his father, conflict with his brother, conflict with his other sister, so that he doesn't care what happens to them, or he's mad at them. He's happy for them to just sort of die. We don't know. It doesn't say here what the deal is. To me, the easiest explanation probably is that he's just so driven by his desire for revenge, which of course is the very first thing he talks about in this whole story, that he wants to kill Intamo. And so he's like, leave me alone, Mom. I've got somebody to kill. I have, relatives to wipe out. I have to continue this blood feud, make it over. So, but yeah, it's clear that he does not have a good relationship with his father. He does not have a good relationship with his brother or his other sister here. Seems like the mother is the only one he has a good relationship with, sort of. All right, so then there's also this kind of bitter exchange with his father. I'm going to read that here. Thereupon the wild Kullervo hastens from his home to battle. To his father speaks departing, fare thou well, my aged father. Wilt thou weep for me, thy hero, when thou hearest I have perished, fallen from thy tribe forever, perished on the field of glory? Thus the father speaks in answer, I shall never mourn the downfall of my evil son Kullervo. Shall not weep when thou hast perished, shall beget a second hero. That will do me better service, that will think and act in wisdom. Kullervoinen gives this answer. Neither shall I mourn thy downfall, shall not weep when thou hast perished. I shall make a second father, make the head from loam and sandstone, make the eyes from swampland berries, make the beard from withered seagrass, make the feet from roots of willow, make the form from birchwood fungus. So basically what happens is that his father basically says, he says, bye, Dad. And his father says, he says to his dad, are you going to cry for me? And his dad is like, no, I'm not going to cry for you, buddy. Now, this, of course, is after he has already said, I don't care if my dad dies while I'm gone. I don't care. Let him die. Right? Again, suggesting there might be some kind of longer term conflict. But either way, even if there wasn't, even if it's just Kullervo is just driven by his need for revenge, you kind of don't blame his dad here by saying, I know you're my evil son Kullervo. I'm not going to cry when you've perished. I'll have another son, that's going to do me better service than you. Right. And then Kullervo gives this weird answer. He's like, well, then I'm definitely not going to cry for you when you're dead. And I'll make another dad. I'll make it from stuff that I find, loam and sandstone and swampland berries and whatever. Yeah. So he also has this basically a similar conversation with his brother and with his other sister, who all also say they're not going to mourn him and that they can replace him. And of course, he says he can replace them as well. I mean, it's kind of a messed up family. Yeah. Oh, someone comments in the chat. We're having some internet difficulties with Deacon Seraphim. Sorry to say, but they're working on it. Everybody, they're working on it. Yeah. Finbear says Deacon Seraphim isn't really gone. He's just in the Northland. Well, I mean, are you suggesting he's dead, buddy? I hope not. No, as far as we know, he's not dead. No, he's just having internet problems. But yeah, I mean, it's yeah, okay. There's something else going on in the chat here that I think is really interesting. So Sauli Lehtonen, so that name looks curiously either Finnish or Estonian, buddy. So you probably know this better than I do. He says, fun fact, in some centuries-old Finnish Bible translations, the Rephaim are called sons of Kalevala. Yeah, so this is an interesting question. So the Rephaim in the Bible, right, are these god kings of old, and there's a very bit of strong Venn diagram overlap with Nephilim. Okay. Is Kullervo a giant? Is Kullervo one of the Nephilim? That would certainly explain why this family is so messed up. It would explain a lot about him. again, remember, like this ultimately is from a pagan background, but filtered through Christian stuff. Although it's interesting that a lot of people, when they first read the Kalevala, they think, oh, this is unchristianized, unedited, digested by civilization. This is the ancient, pure pagan stuff. Not true. And in fact, a number of one thing that's interesting to note about the Kalevala is that Lönnrot collected these poems into this one text, but then there's a bunch of stuff that he collected and did not put in there. And actually, some of that stuff has been published. You can go read it. And in a lot of those other runos that he selected out, there's much more explicitly Christian stuff. So it's clear that he was trying to have a kind of reconstructed Finnish paganism or something like that. I think that this connection of the Rephaim, the Nephilim, to Kullervo, because remember, he's called the son of Kullervo or Kalevala. He's the son of a hero. He's the son of this sort of divine figure, and he's magical. Like, why is he magical? Why is he a wizard? Why does he have these powers? Why is he so big and strong? So, yeah, I memean, if in your head canon you want to say Kullervo is one of the Nephilim, absolutely. I think it definitely kind of works. It's a messed up family. He's explicitly called evil in the text, so we don't need to make excuses for him. All right, so he journeys. And as he's leaving, he's going to go find Untamo and take his revenge. As he's on his way, he receives word that his father, and then his brother, and then his sister, and then his mother, that each one has died. So the cause of death is not given for them, but it seems that maybe that his mother died of grief, because it talks about her dying in grief. Maybe it means that she died of grief. And the only one that he really mourns is his mom, which is consistent, with his relationship with her up to this point. So, okay, so here's now the final, some of the final stuff from this. So he's about to go meet Untamo, and he addresses Ukko as the Most High God, Sky God, and asks for help. Kullervoinen journeyed onward, still rejoicing to the combat, sang these songs in supplication. Ukko, mightiest of rulers, loan to me thy sword of battle, grant to me thy matchless weapon, and against 1,000 armies I will war and ever conquer. Ukko gave the youth his broadsword, gave his blade of magic powers to the wizard Kullervoinen. Thus equipped, the mighty hero slew the people of Untamo, burned their villages to ashes, only left the stones and ovens and the chimneys of their hamlets. So, so he asks Ukko for help, says, give me your sword, okay? And then he takes this sword, and he wipes out his uncle and all the rest. So, I mean, it's an interesting thing to ask. So Ukko being a sky god, is his sword, is it lightning? Is that what he was given? Was he given the thunderbolt, effectively? It says a broadsword, but it says that he kills them and burns their villages to ashes. So there is some fire, imagery going on here. And I think it's reasonable to suggest that maybe the sword of Ukko is the lightning bolt, or should you remind you of the lightning bolt? He is a sky god after all. Sky gods are connected with this kind of stuff. But it's interesting that he wants help. I mean, what's up with that? Why doesn't he think he can just take them out? Maybe because he escapes, he doesn't escape. He's sold as a youth, whatever, and he feels a certain sense of, maybe there's, even though it doesn't say this in the text, maybe he feels some kind of apprehension. He feels like he wants he wants help. He wants to make sure that he's going to be able to get his vengeance. I don't know. It's an interesting question of why it is that he wants the sword to kill them, why he wants the power of Ukko in order to to be able to do this. So we'll see. We'll see. So he goes back. Now he's slaughtered in Tamo and all of his kinfolk over there, right? The kinslaying has now kind of found its fulfillment, its consummation. The blood feud is over now because everyone is dead except for Kullervo. So he goes back to his family cabin. And this is a kind of poignant moment, really. So he goes back to his family cabin, and it's empty and it's lifeless. And this is what we read. Then the conqueror Kullervo turned his footsteps to his homeland, to the cabin of his father, to his ancient fields and forests. Empty did he find the cabin, and the forests were deserted. No one came to give him greeting, none to give the hand of welcome. Laid his fingers on the oven, but he found it cold and lifeless. Then he knew to satisfaction that his mother lived no longer. Laid his hand upon the fireplace, cold and lifeless were the hearthstones. Then he knew to satisfaction that his sister too had perished. Then he sought the landing places, found no boats upon the rollers. Then he knew to satisfaction that his brother too had perished. Then he looked upon the fish nets, and he found them torn and tangled. And he knew to satisfaction that his father too had perished. So in this part, the way that he knows his family is dead is because the work that they do is not being minded, right? So no one welcomes him, but that he goes to the oven and he touches the oven and it's cold. And he sees that it's cold, that means his mom is dead. He goes to the fireplace with its hearthstones, and they're cold and lifeless. So, they would light the fire, and there were these stones that would heat up, and they would use this for cooking. And his sister apparently was the one who was taking care of that. But it's cold, so that means she's not there. And then he goes down to where the boats are, and the boats are gone. His brother's dead. He looks at the fish nets, they're torn and tangled. His father is the one who's catching the fish, who's taking care of the nets. And he knows that his dad is dead as well. It's a really, I don't know, this is a powerful scene, I think. And I think it's much more powerful than if he had simply found their corpses. I think there's something about going and finding that it's empty and knowing they're dead versus like, oh, it's a dead body. It's a dead body. It's a dead body. And it's not like, don't believe someone's dead until you see the body. Right. So it's not, it doesn't give that kind of, to use the word that's in the text, satisfaction, but he knows that they're gone because the thing that they did is gone. It's cold, it's empty, it's broken, it's unminded. And what it does is because he doesn't have a corpse there in front of him to mourn, and indeed, he didn't even get to mourn over the sister that leaped to her death. He didn't get to mourn over a corpse. She's just gone. Everyone he really loves or is connected to in any way, he's denied even any final kind of true mourning of being able to bury them or whatever. It's really poignant. It's really difficult. It's really painful. And so then this is what we see, then his response. He says, bitterly he wept and murmured, wept one day and then a second. On the third day spake as follows, faithful mother, fond and tender, why hast left me here to sorrow in this wilderness of trouble? But thou dost not hear my calling, though I sing in magic accents, though my teardrops speak lamenting, though my heart bemoans thine absence. So, it's clear that he's mourning his mother. I think it doesn't say this in the text, even the parts that we skipped over. I think he's mourning his father and his brother and his sister too, because why else would he go and touch the places where they had been? Why would he do that he said he didn't care if they died. I think he does. Not in the way that he cares about his mother, clearly, but I think he does. It's interesting, the beginning of this passage, it calls him the conqueror Kullervo. He's won. And yet, what has he won? Everybody's dead. Everybody's dead. And the implication is that his family would not have died if he had not left them. That's the implication. So he's conquered, right? But at what cost? Everything he had left. His family that he thought was dead, and now they really are dead. He really has lost them all. So it's definitely a Pyrrhic victory, right? That he wins against Untamo, and he has the sword of Ukko. So when he says this last thing to his mother, "Why have you left me?" She responds. She's dead, of course. So this is what we see. From her grave awakes the mother. To Kullervo speaks these measures. Thou hast still the dog remaining. He will lead thee to the forest. Follow thou the faithful watcher. Let him lead thee to the woodlands, to the farthest woodland border, to the caverns of the wood nymphs. There the forest maidens linger. They will give thee food and shelter. Give my hero joyful greetings. So where is she telling him to go? To the borders, to where the forest maidens linger, the spirits, right? They will give you food and shelter, give you joyful greetings. Where exactly is she telling him to go? This is a liminal space next to the other world, right? There's actually a clue here as to what's going on, which may not be super obvious, and that is that he is led there. She tells him to be led there by his dog. By his dog. I'll discuss in a second what that's about. But the dog is a clue. It's a mythological clue. All right. Kullervoinen with his watchdog hastens onward through the forest, journeys on through fields and fallows, journeys but a little distance, till he comes upon the summit where he met his long-lost sister. Finds the turf itself is weeping, finds the glenwood filled with sorrow, finds the heather shedding teardrops, weeping are the meadow flowers, or the ruin of his sister. So where is he passing? He's passing by the place where he met her, where he met the one that he committed incest with. And I mean, look at this. The turf itself is weeping, the glenwood filled with sorrow, the heather shedding teardrops, weeping are the meadow flowers, or the ruin of his sister. So nature itself is lamenting his sister. Yeah. Okay. Kullervoinen, wicked wizard, grasps the handle of his broadsword. This is the sword from Ukko, okay? The magical blade. Asks the blade this simple question. Tell me, O my blade of honor, dost thou wish to drink my lifeblood, drink the blood of Kullervoinen? So what is he doing here? He's basically asking the sword, do you want to kill me? He's asking this magical sword, do you want to kill me? We found out, by the way, for those of you who are wondering about the whereabouts of my co-host, is apparently his whole block has lost internet access. So that's not great. But anyway, we've got some more poetry to continue to read here, so we'll just keep on keeping on. It's okay. Yeah, so he asks the sword, do you want to kill me? Thus his trusty sword makes answer, well divining his intentions. Why should I not drink the lifeblood, blood of guilty Kullervoinen? Since I feast upon the worthy, drink the lifeblood of the righteous. So in other words, he's saying, why shouldn't I kill you? Guilty Kullervoinen, guilty Kullervo. And basically what he's saying is, I feast upon even the worthy and the righteous, like I kill good people. Why shouldn't I kill you? You're bad people. I mean, he's bad. The text is telling us over and over again, he's wicked. And it's not ironic. He is wicked. He's done a whole lot of wicked things. Thereupon the youth Kullervo, wicked wizard of the Northland, lifts the mighty sword of Ukko, bids adieu to earth and heaven, firmly thrusts the hilt in heather. Now, what he's doing here is he's putting the sword so that the hilt, the place you hold on to, is down in the heather, which, remember earlier it said the heather is shedding teardrops over his sister. Okay, so this is connecting them. Firmly thrusts the hilt in heather, to his heart he points the weapon, throws his weight upon his broadsword, pouring out his wicked lifeblood, ere he journeys to Manala. Thus the wizard finds destruction, this the end of Kullervoinen, born in sin and nursed in folly. He feels like he's got nothing to live for. Even the sword is ready to take him out. So he puts the hilt in the dirt and slams himself on this magical sword from Ukko. So then the final words, here in the Kullervo story come from Wainamoinen, the great singing bard, our sort of, he's kind of a Tom Bombadil figure in certain ways, as we mentioned when we were discussing him in that previous episode. He comes in and kind of functions like a chorus, right? So here we go. Here's the end of the Kullervo story. Wainamoinen, ancient minstrel, as he hears the joyful tidings, learns the death of fell Kullervo, speaks these words of ancient wisdom. O ye many unborn nations, never evil nurse your children, never give them out to strangers, never trust them to the foolish. If the child is not well nurtured, is not rocked and led uprightly, though he grow to years of manhood, bear a strong and shapely body, he will never know discretion, never eat the bread of honor, never drink the cup of wisdom. So, what is Wainamoinen, the great bard, saying here? It seems like he's saying, for the many unborn nations he's speaking to, raise your children well. Don't let them be raised by strangers or the foolish. Because if you do that, then the implication is they're going to grow up like Kullervo. There's already that reference to him being badly rocked. Of course, he rocked himself. I don't know. I find this a little unsatisfying. Maybe this is just me. I think I find it a little bit unsatisfying. Like here's the moral of the story, folks. And I don't know. Is this Elias Lönnrot? Did he write this? I maybe he didn't. Maybe he did. Maybe he did. I don't know. I find the story is very unsettling, very disturbing, a lot of dark themes. Deacon Seraphim said at the beginning, so what else is new basically in fairy tales? Yes, that's true. You get this kind of stuff in a lot of fairy tales, but it's often not piled up together so much as it is for this one. It's tough. So I think for me, the sort of moral of the story approach here at the end from Wainamoinen is, I don't know. I find it unsatisfying. I don't think that it really tells the story. I don't think it really explains what's happened. I see in the chat a couple of comments, summarizing Vainamoinen. So Savannah says, "Don't take your kids to daycare." Ha ha. Yeah. And then Amber says, is this an early version of the song, "Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys"? Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what he's saying here. But I don't know. I think there's way more going on with Kullervo. He's definitely, it's not just that he's badly raised or whatever. This kid is special and not in a good way. He's definitely some kind of spirit child or one of the Nephilim, giant. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, I mentioned the dog, and of course, Pierce in the chat has correctly identified the dog is a psychopomp. So, psychopomp is a spirit or a being that leads you on a tour of, or takes you to, guides you to the afterlife, whether it's to the underworld or, through the heavens or whatever it may be like this. So, his mother, I mean, think about this, okay? His mother says, follow the dog. The dog is going to take you to the edge of the forest where these spirits are, and they're going to take care of you. She's essentially saying he's going to guide you to the afterlife. Does she knows he's going to kill himself, or is she encouraging him to kill himself? Or is the suicide, is that a detour along the way? I don't think so. Because of the dog, especially. Because of the mention of the spirits. Yeah. So yeah, it is a psychopomp. So in the chat, actually, Finbears says this. This is a great comment, Finbears. Feels kind of like Kullervo and the Sword are agents of judgment on the society that produced him from Ukko. Agents of judgment. So is he sort of like the angel of death on some level? Yeah. Vengeance of God, as it were. Okay. I mean, I could see that, but what about the mom? She doesn't deserve any of this. What about the sister that he commits incest with? Yeah, she should not have slept with him, but still kind of innocent. She doesn't deserve any of that. So, now, mind you, an evil person can be an agent of justice from God, from, even in the scriptures, right? The Assyrians are agents of justice against the northern kingdom of Israel, who fall into gross idolatry. Absolutely. But it's interesting that you mentioned this. Okay, so there is a book by Lisa Kutras, which is called Tolkien's Theology of Beauty, and she really analyzes the Turin story. And what she does is she says that, and she points. It's really fascinating. It's a great book, by the way, if you're into Tolkien studies, and beautifully written. It's really a lovely, lovely book. She says in there that the way that Tolkien retells the story, which I can't remember all the details now, but essentially that the sword in Tolkien's story of Turin becomes a sword of justice. So I think Tolkien is trying to kind of fix the story, right? Make it work theologically, and it becomes a sword of justice. And that's here in the Kalevala too, right? Where the sword basically says, "Look, I've killed good people, and you're guilty, buddy. You're guilty. You should die too." And so it is a sword of justice, right? But yeah, I mean, this whole thing is very unsettling. It's very, very unsettling, and it's interesting to me also that Kullervo predicts that he's going to die in battle. And maybe that's what would have happened if he had simply gone and done battle against Utamo and his people without the magical Ukko sword. Maybe that's what would have happened. We don't know. What does happen is that he successfully wipes them all out with the magical sword. He doesn't die courageously in battle. He falls on the sword. Literally, he falls on his sword. So yeah, it's a very unsettling story. Pierce asks the question, isn't every sword a sword of justice? Not always. Not always, I think. Not always. I mean, there's a sense, of course, in which we all deserve to die. We're all sinners. But they're not always. Especially within the Christian context, a lot of swords killed martyrs. That's definitely unjust. It's an unjust act to kill a martyr, even though it's God's will. It's within God's will. So I don't know. I would not say that every sword is a sword of justice, but certainly, I mean, I think that this sword functions as justice. It's difficult, and it's interesting that it becomes a character in the story that actually talks. In the Turin story of Tolkien, the sword does not come from Ukko, from the sky god, but it's actually formed out of essentially meteorite. So kind of the same thing, fallen from the sky, that kind of thing. So, Sam asks the question, how much of a connection is there between the Kalevala and the similarly compiled Estonian story, Kalevala? I don't know, actually. It's an interesting question. I just don't know. It's fascinating to me. Another thing that Pierce notices, he says, often we don't really notice death until we notice the absence of the person in our life via what is no longer being done. Yeah, talking about, of course, how Kullervo comes back to his family's house and he sees that they're gone. It's true. It's true. That is a beautiful comment, actually, Pierce. If you've had someone in your life die, someone close to you, especially maybe someone you live with, family member, or once lived with, then they don't do that thing anymore. That thing that connected them to you. You can't reach out to them anymore. I remember, my mother died of a brain tumor now 12 years ago. And I can't talk to my mom anymore. She's just not there. That absence, that sense of absence is in many ways what conveys the truth of their death, And I think that, one of the beautiful things about the way that the Christian view of the life of the age to come has been described to me, that makes a lot of sense to me, is that all of the good that we have done in this life, all of the ways in which we have cooperated with the will of God, right? All of that becomes eternal. And what that means is that part of the sorrow that we experience in this world of the absence of our loved ones, part of the way that that's going to be healed in the age to come is that those experiences that we had with them that are gone now, that are absent, that we miss, those will become permanently present for us in a way that we can't explain. But it's to me, it's a truly beautiful, beautiful thought. Tolkien himself talks about, when he's in one of his letters to one of his sons, he talks about heaven being a place where all the unfinished stories continue, where they continue. And so I think that that's a beautiful thought as well. So, all right. So to wrap up, we've gone 2.5 hours. Fate has taken away my co-host, it seems. But God willing, he'll be back So just some interesting questions in this unsettling, really unsettling, disturbing story to think about. So is Kullervo fated to be a monster? We've explored that to some extent, but I just want to put that out there for you again. If you're listening to this, is he fated to be a monster? Is there no way out? I don't know. Even with what Väinämöinen says at the end, I just don't know. I just don't know. He desires revenge. Huh? He desires revenge. And doesn't that shape him and his relationships? And isn't that the thing that drives his character? He's driven by that desire for revenge. He's bad at everything, yes. He breaks everything, yes. But he doesn't accidentally kill Intamo and his family. He doesn't accidentally abandon his family at the end. He wants to do that. He's driven by that desire for revenge. Yes, we can have a conversation about nature nurture here, but I think that his will is a huge, huge piece of this story. Huge piece of the story. And his will is bent towards revenge. About the only moment that we don't see him bent towards revenge is maybe the moments when he's sorrowing, the moment when he's trying to seduce this unknown girl who turns out to be a sister. But it's revenge. Revenge is the thing that drives him throughout the whole story. I think that's, to me, that's the strongest answer as to why he is a monster. Yeah. And I think that distorts his family, distorts his relationships with his family. That's what's going on there. Here's maybe one of an unsettling question. Could the story have ended in some other way? In some other way? What would have happened if he had chosen not to take revenge? That would have certainly been, it would have required a moment of repentance. It would have required a moment of turnaround where he does something else. That doesn't happen. What about the moment when he kills himself? Could he have found some other way of being? From a Christian point of view, of course, he could have. He could have lived a life of repentance after that. But within the vector of the story, as it's being told in the Kalevala, I don't think so. I don't think it would have gone that way. So I don't know. I think that given his character, given the way that everything else is set up, that especially once he comes back to his family and meets them again, I think the fate is set at that point, that it's just going to do what it's going to do. If he had repented after discovering that he had slept with his sister, maybe it would have been something different. So anyway, well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. So ends another cheerful tale of massacre and other adult themes on the Great Tales. We'll be back, God willing, in a couple of weeks with more and maybe even a happy ending, but don't get your hopes up too high. Till next time, fare you well wherever you may wander, and just keep on slaying. I mean, like, in Jingle Bells. And this has been a listener and viewer-supported presentation of Ancient Faith Radio.